Part 296. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2963. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. I didn't expect that the senior Jia Yan would leave such a great gift at the end. If we can perfect this cultivation technique, the magic sex power can reach a higher level. The territory lord looked back deeply at the subdimensional land where Jia Yan left, and finally smiled awkwardly. He also believed that the senior had done something wrong in their demon sect. Unexpectedly, I found out in the end that people were bartering. If I had known about it, I would have been kinder to them. Maybe the exercises could help them improve even better. What a pity, such a good opportunity. Only. What level is this person at? Why was he able to dismantle my magic skills to this level and improve it so well in such a short period of time after studying it? This territory lord looked a little solemn. And I feel deeply doubtful about the future of Jianghu Star territory. After all, if such an existence walks in the Jianghu Star territory, if one mistake is made, the entire Jianghu Star territory will be plunged into catastrophe. Even though their demon sect is like a rat crossing the street in the Jianghu Star territory, if the Jianghu Star territory is in trouble, I will be obliged to stand up and protect the soil for everyone's survival. However, with such an existence, even if they want to do something, they have nothing to do and can only watch the situation change from the side. In addition to the events caused by these two clones, similar incidents were also happening in several other clones. But even so, there is no clone in any direction that is blocked from returning. It is probably that Wu Zun has roughly locked the identities of these clones, and at the same time he is also showing his control over the Jianghu Star territory. In short, Jia Yan's clone actions have vague external help. It was no longer fun, and there might be a big enemy coming, so Jia Yan collected all the clones in one go so that he could go all out to fight against the enemy. At the same time, the intelligence on the Jianghu star field collected by these clones was also roughly collected and returned by him. Whether the future Orion arm can be upgraded structurally depends on the various intelligence collected recently. Forget it, the only time left for the many affairs in this Jianghu star territory, or in the northern territory, is to finally have the white dolphin's body in place. Northern territory. It seems to be a famous area, but after seeing the more prosperous central star field of the Milky Way, when I came here, I didn't feel so amazing. Of course, it's not that the Northern Territory is not good, nor does it mean that he looks down on the Northern Territory. Here, Jia Yan will definitely have terrifying beings who are stronger than him. Yes, there are so many hidden and astonishing powerful men in the central star region of the Milky Way, and the Northern Territory is known as the king of this large area. It should not be possible for those senior territory lords to do it alone. Presumably even if most senior territory lords do not, I know the inside story, but there will definitely be one or two beings who are more powerful than the senior domain masters. But this is not the reason for Jia Yan to continue to take risks here. In the next period of time, he will have to digest the recent gains. But the remaining body of the white dolphin must truly flow into his hands. It just depends on whether those guys are proactive enough. If they want to cause trouble, Jia Yan is definitely not someone who is afraid of trouble. Deep within subspace, a dazzling amount of energy is being vented, and it is white on one side and black on the other, like thousands of arrows shooting out in unison, which is quite magnificent. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Jia Yan, who was already in the final stage, quickly straightened out all his power and entered the final step of swallowing. One after another, the clones came from outside the subspace, driven by Edisha in the aircraft, and then came to the inside of the palace. They didn't say much after they returned, and part of them just disappeared, blending into the giant mosquito breakthrough in the distance. Except for the black god Jiayan. Yeah, brother. Little Edisha was still more familiar with Jiayan's black god clone, and she wanted to hug him. How old is a person? Yes, she's still acting coquettishly. Black god Jiayan smiled and pinched the little guy's nose, making Edisha almost grin in protest. She hates people pinching her nose. Not to mention her age. If my brother and master hadn't wanted to do it, Edisha could have grown up. Edisha, who looks about 6 years old, is actually over 10 years old. Of course, Edisha would not say this in front of others. She may seem childish, but inside she has a delicate heart. Brother, why don't you go back to the master's brother? She asked with a smile. I don't have to. How have you been these days? That's great. There are so many robots on Edita, it's so fun. Black god Jiayan was silent for a moment and then said, Are you lonely? Edisha was startled and thought for a while before nodding, I'm lonely, no one plays with me. Then you go back to the creation world to play for a few days. When you come out of seclusion in person in 2 days, I'll call you again. Okay. Edisha's eyes brightened. The creation of the world is in the hands of the black god Jiayan, who has never left her body. She wants to go back, of course, it is an instant matter. In less than a second, I heard Edisha being sucked into the world of creation. On the way, I heard her screaming and laughing, Jialin, I come to play with you. As the lingering sound lingered, black god Jiayan shook his head and put away the lintel that created the world. Taking Edisha's place, he performed various necessary tasks in the palace. It's time to try to get some people in the creative world to go out and help Edisha. Jiayan has already had this plan. It is quite difficult for Edisha to manage the palace and the Edisha star behind it alone. What's more, he has such a thing as creating the world in his hand. It would be a waste of resources to put it aside. Why not try to think about it? Practice it? Thinking that he had just enough time, he opened the world of creation again, walked around, and focused on the people that the other clones had bumped into. For example, the disciples of Taoist clones and beggar clones. Another example is the female reporter who once interviewed me. There are also the senior leaders of the Black God Army who fight alongside him. Others are in more trouble. Let the troops come out first. This will make it easier to carry out my orders. Jiayan thought for a while, and a thought entered the world of creation. For him, it is very simple to do this kind of thing. Ever since the white dolphin was killed and devoured by him, the world has become a place exclusive to him. A single thought can control the laws of the entire world and even life and death. Projection, that's it, very simple. No matter on the other side of the world, Edisha and Jialin, who created the world, are playing so crazy. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. He directly projected his thoughts onto the Black Temple, and the figure flashed and sat between the high thrones. I've seen the god of creation. Jiayan looked at the guard leader, who seemed to be a strange genius in the world of cultivation. In the end, he gradually entered the upper echelons of the temple during the competition and came to assume the responsibility of the leader in his temple. In the world of immortality, are there any legends about ascending to the immortal world? As soon as Jiayan spoke, the respectful commander was slightly startled. The legends of the world of immortality, or the system of immortality itself, are moving towards the stage of immortal. As for the immortal cultivators, one or two, they are spreading the rumor more and more in private that our creator god may come from the immortal world. Yes, there have always been legends about cultivating immortals. Jiayan nodded calmly. Whether there is a fairyland in the world, I can't say. It's not easy for me to define whether the world where this god lives is the fairyland you want. But today, I want to summon some people to come to this world. In the world of God, I wonder if you have anyone to choose from. Hashtag. My subordinates are willing to go. This genius in the world of immortality shivered all over, his expression became extremely ecstatic, and he quickly knelt down on the ground. After all, it may be the fairy world. Even if it is not the fairy world, it is definitely the world that gave birth to the God of creation. It belongs to the upper world. It doesn't say whether he yearns for it, but they have already deduced that if they want to get out of the level above invincibility, he had to go to the upper world, which was enough to attract him. Well, you go and choose 10 well-trained people, and I will lead you out today. However, the work in the outside world is very different from that here, and may even be more lonely, but I will try my best to let you have as much fun as possible. Rotation time. Yes. The commander happily accepted the order and hurried towards the commander's duty room to select personnel. Elder brother. At this time, 2 figures came uninvited. Editha also has extremely high authority in creating the world. When Jia Yan arrived, she immediately sensed Jia Yan's arrival and entered the palace directly. Behind her was naturally the world Jia Lin, who was traveling with her. You reminded me earlier, just come in and take care of something. Seeing that Jia Lin was careless and hesitant to speak, Jia Yan asked with a smile, "What's wrong, little sister, aren't you happy to see your brother?" Jia Lin shook her head like a rattle, "No, it's just that brother, you won't be able to stay long before you have to leave. I feel very uncomfortable." Jia Yan sighed, "But the outside world where we live may actually be more interesting than you being a goddess here, otherwise I would take you out." Edisha shouted, "Can Jia Lin be allowed to go out occasionally? She is about to break through to the venerable level, and Edisha thinks there are more ways outside." Black God Jia Yan sensed it and found that Jia Lin had indeed entered the bottleneck of the venerable level, and couldn't help but be a little surprised. Before, Jia Lin's strength was only that of a newcomer to the starry sky level. How long has it been since we last met, and now he has been promoted to the peak of the starry sky level? You must know that although there are many so-called venerables in this created world, they have all been cultivated for hundreds or thousands of years under the calculations of the intelligent brain before they can reach the venerable level. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. But Jia Lin has become an alternative. Although she cannot be compared with the cultivation speed of these foreign gods, nor can she be compared with Edisha, but don't forget that she is a native life and is affected by the laws of this world. Maybe she was given the attributes of a god by me, so she has the bonus of the world. Jia Yan is the god of creation. Except for the white dolphin, his authority here is almost as follows. After conferring divine status on Jia Lin and others, everyone will more or less express the rights and interests of gods. Others are already fast at cultivation and may not notice anything, but for native beings like Jia Lin, having the power of a god has such great benefits. But it's normal. If you don't even have this benefit, you have to practice for hundreds of thousands of years to reach the venerable level, and you can't even defeat a mortal, then what kind of god is it? That's good. If you have a chance to break through to the venerable level, you might have a better chance in the outside world. After weighing the pros and cons, Jia Yan nodded. Anyway, it was originally planned to let Jia Lin in this world go to the outside world to see the world. That's great, Jia Lin, my brother and the master have agreed. Thank you, brother. The 2 little girls were chattering. After a while, 10 selected people led by the commander also came to the main hall. I met Jia Yan and the 2 little goddesses. Jia Yan looked at their appearance, cultivation, and character, observed them silently for a moment, nodded and said, "Very good, it's just you." "Thank you, Lord Creation God, for your appreciation," everyone said in unison. But Jia Yan stood up and said meaningfully, "Where to go?" In the outside world, you will see a very impactful world, which may affect your cultivation and soul, and may even cause various consequences. Are you willing to bear this consequence? Everyone looked at each other. But thinking that it was the fairy world, or something similar to the fairy world. In short, it must be a more complex and vast world than this world, and their hearts were quickly filled with indomitable belief. They are all powerful men above the venerable level. The leader has even reached the lower level of the venerable and is close to the invincible realm. Let's put it this way, if Edisha doesn't use the means left to her by Jia Yan and only relies on her own strength, it will be very difficult to defeat these 11 people. Of course, Edisha's strength has never been her own. I'm still willing to go and fight. That's good, come with me. Jia Yan stood up and appeared in front of everyone. This gate is different from the underworld gate that everyone in the Black Temple has seen, and it is also different from the sense of energy they know. It reveals a trace of cruelty and unimaginable surging power. They all took a deep breath, and then they realized how wonderful the world they were about to leave would be. You follow me out first. I will protect you as much as possible. Let's try to see how you adapt to the outside world. After the black god Jia Yan finished speaking, he lifted up the group of strong men and Edisha Jialin and walked out towards the black door lintel. In fact, the whole process didn't take long, as if it passed by in a blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, everyone appeared in an extremely vast, seemingly vast, towering world with nothing in sight. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. This, is this? What's this? It seems, the world is clearer. Everyone felt their scalps numb, and their hearts were extremely shocked. Jia Yan looked at the fellow. Jia Lin was shocked and said, "Little sister, how do you feel?" She was speechless, her eyes were full of ripples, and tears fell down as she looked at them. I seem to see the world clearly. It's not our world. Why is it better than this world? The feeling that a lot of things are missing, our world seems very unreal." Jia Yan was silent for a moment, chewing on this sentence, and then nodded. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2964. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. It's a normal phenomenon. Creating the world means creating the world. It's too simple. The world calculated by the intelligent brain may not feel like anything if you live in it, but there is no comparison. Just like Jia Yan and others are uncomfortable in the created world, these people who live in the created world have long been in daily life. I experience various discomforts. I didn't think there was anything there at first, but once I stepped out, I could intuitively feel that what was outside was the reality. The feeling of shock that comes when you first arrive is quite exaggerated. Of course it's more exaggerated. It's this big hall. Rather than saying it is a hall, it is better to say that the length and width alone are thousands of kilometers, and it is like a planet to them. The horizon is as far as the eye can see. In an instant, this group of people could only see chills all over their bodies and had no idea where they were. Wow, ha 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 ha, are you shocked? It was Edisha who spoke up first, shouting triumphantly. Where is this? Jia Lin first asked tremblingly. This is the main hall. It's very big, isn't it? In fact, the main hall is opened by Edisha. The main hall. What the hell, is this a temple? Compared to the Black Temple, it's not a little bigger. They raised their heads. After all, they were strong men and could see the palace ceiling that was thousands of kilometers high. However, this ceiling was like the top of the sky, with white clouds floating on it, and it was raining in some places. In the distance, the lines of bricks and tiles on the main hall extended into the distance, and when they looked around where they and others were, they were surprised to find that they were standing on a giant floor tile. And this floor tile is almost the size of the province of Black God. Is this a temple? This is a whole world. You should familiarize yourself with the place first, and then Edisha will take you to Edisha Star. This palace is not a place you will protect in the future. Black God Jiayan is not surprised that these people who created the world have such a mentality. If someone told him that there were other greater worlds outside the galaxy and took him to that majestic world, his performance would not be much better. The Black God Jiayan carefully let go of his protection for these people who created the world. After discovering that they were only shaken by the impact of different worlds at first, they quickly adapted and let go of their care for Jialin. After a long time of adapting to the majesty of the 10,000-meter level palace in fear, everyone looked at the throne in the main hall, which only belonged to the behemoth. Everyone was silent. There was a vague promise coming from the bottom of their hearts, that is, such a huge palace does not seem to belong to Lord Kurakama. However, after assessing the situation, they failed to ask. Go to the Edisha Star with Edisha. After Edisha found that they had adapted, she communicated with Jiayan and directly led the group of world creators on the subspace flight equipment and flew to the Edisha Star next to the palace. Speaking of which, Edisha was originally allowed to relax and play in the creation world for a few days, but unexpectedly she went back on her word and asked her to come back again. Of course, this can be considered a game, and Jiayan believes that the timing is just right, otherwise if it were delayed for a while, he might forget to shake people out from the creation world to help. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Edisha, where is this place? Is this the so-called fairyland? Jialin, who created the world, was sitting in a subspace aircraft, looking at the extremely twisted but vaguely terrifying space around her, and she was completely silent. She believes that the world has not yet been created here. Of course this is not the outside world. This is called subspace. It is a place where only the Master's brother's talent can enter. The real outside world is still further away. I see, then what are we going to do now? You guys go play with Edisha first. Look at that. There are a lot of fun things on Edisha Star. From now on, Edisha will teach you how to do things and take you to play outside when she has the opportunity. Let me tell you, outside it's fun, there are still many strong people. Strong? How strong? Is he as strong as my brother? Well. Edisha was in trouble, saying no, it seemed a bit against her will, but yes, to this day, she doesn't seem to be much better than Jiayan. No one dares to provoke Master Brother anyway, but, Master Brother has a big secret. You will know it in 2 days. I am telling you now because I am afraid that you will not be able to bear the blow, Editha is mysterious. She was referring to the fact that Jiayan's true identity is not the Black God, but the true identity behind the Black God. Since Jialin goes out often, it is unlikely to hide it. How to hide a giant mosquito that is dozens of kilometers in size? Instead of shocking Jialin and the others when it is suddenly discovered, it is better to tell them directly in advance after some time. Good. Brother's secret? Okay, tell me in a few days. She had just seen a palace that was tens of thousands of kilometers in size. Now in an aircraft that was dozens of kilometers in size, watching the palace's majestic figure like a planet disappearing into the distance, Jialin felt that nothing could shock her. No matter how big my brother's secret is, can such a thing be more shocking? It turns out there are still some. When Editha led this group of visitors to the world of creation, it was like Lu Lao Lao entered the Grand View Garden on the Editha Star. They had seen a bunch of her robots and admired the majesty of the completely artificially decorated planet. After completely entering a state of confusion and incomprehension, Wang Jia came. Rumble, rumble, rumble. In the subspace world in the distance, there seemed to be some prehistoric giant beast, lifting up half of the sky. The entire world was filled with light, and from time to time azure brilliance shone. What? The sky is going to explode. Run away quickly. Lady Aditha, there is a vision over there. What a terrifying power. If affected by this power, we will all die. The 11 black god guards recruited from the Black Temple were all frightened by the news. They felt that they had seen and experienced more in the past few days than they had experienced in their entire lives combined. Tens of thousands of kilometers of palaces, a completely artificially transformed exquisite planet, as well as robots as numerous as seawater, and endless resources piled on Edisha made their scalps numb. But now, a picture that shocked them even more appeared. The distant sky was torn apart. In other words, there was no sky there. It was just a strange sky that was always filled with mist, twisting and rolling, and there were ultra-high energy movements. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. How high is this energy? For example, many of them had witnessed the battle between the black and white gods. The two creation gods, are they strong enough? Before today, they had always believed that it should be the most powerful force in the world, even in this weird world. But such a strong energy fluctuation, thrown under the boiling feeling of power in the distance, is as small as a witch, not even an ant next to an elephant. The energy released in a random wave can kill them. No need to run away, this is the truth I want to tell you. But Edisha jumped up and down, danced happily, and flew to the edge of the Edisha star. Master, come on. Owner. Below, Jialin frowned as she looked at the spectacular scenery in the sky. As for the master, isn't he the elder brother? But she was very sure that her brother Jiayan had never left the palace. Even if he walked out, it shouldn't be possible for him to make such a big noise. At any rate, Jialin has reached a level close to the venerable level today, and can still make simple judgments on strength. God can see the pity. This is because Jiayan did not want to hide her deliberately, otherwise even the domain lord level would not be able to see the roots of his black god clone. How could a little girl who walked out of a mere creation world see this? But it's still a miss. The black god clone was indeed not in that area of thunder and lightning. The world quickly changed from a state of wind and rolling clouds, as if it was about to end the world. It seemed that all the twisting forces in the vast area near the 10-dimensional space had stopped. Everyone on Edisha finally couldn't bear the pressure, and sat cross-legged on the ground one by one, their faces as pale as paper. Even the venerable level is completely unable to withstand the fluctuations of that power, and this is despite being separated by at least tens of thousands of kilometers. Several of them looked at each other with regret in their eyes. If I had known that it was so scary outside, I shouldn't have gone out with the god of creation in the first place. What kind of ghost is this? It can easily destroy the created world with one blow. It's so scary outside. They really miss home. Hey, come on, come on. Edisha seems to have unlimited energy and can still keep spinning in the sky. As if with her encouragement, the sky that had been brewing something suddenly seemed to be broken out of a cocoon, and the entire twisted and chaotic land was filled with azure light that swept over a large area. An unbelievably huge creature, with its whole body burning with blazing blue flames, stood proudly in the center of the chaotic area just now. With his appearance, all the movement around him seemed to have stopped for an instant. It wasn't until this behemoth took a step forward with graceful steps that the astonishing silence was finally broken. The twisted space is like the layers of waves, rolling back and beating away, quickly filling the space again. However, no matter how amazing they are and how powerful their twisting power is, they can't seem to get close to the huge monster that just seemed to be reborn from the ashes in the blue flames. Mosquito, Mosquito. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. There are mosquitoes in the world of creation too. But how can there be such a big mosquito? Seeing the behemoth that was tens of thousands of kilometers away continue to move towards them gracefully, covering thousands of kilometers in one step, Jialin could only feel her whole body trembling uncontrollably. What the hell is this? It's too terrible. It feels like just one look at her will absorb all your soul. The level difference is so big that it cannot even be described as God, as if its existence itself is an existence that exceeds the level of God's. If this giant mosquito-like monster had a realm, it was one that was unfathomable and far beyond her comprehension. Anyway, Jialin, like the 11 black god guards, felt bitingly cold and couldn't use her head. As for the behemoth that walked gracefully, step by step, the azure color on its body gradually extinguished as it walked. At the same time, what was also extinguished was the astonishing coercion he carried all over his body. Although the sense of energy is still so strong, it will no longer automatically suppress this group of weak life forms. Jialin and the others, whose heads were in a state of mush, were finally able to recover from their confusion. But when they looked again, despair filled their hearts instantly. The giant mosquito-like creature had, at some point, traveled tens of thousands of kilometers and arrived above the planet Edisha. Big. It's really big. The head-to-tail length is about 50 kilometers, and the countless pairs of eyes among the compound eyes are vividly visible. Standing proudly in the sky, he could block out the sky and the sun combined with the scenery he just saw. Everyone knew that this monster coming with the force of thunder had incomprehensible power. This is no longer God, but something above God. We won't die. There was a black god guard who was very uneasy. Even though he was ready to die when he created the world, he was still filled with panic and terror when he died in the hands of such earth-shattering things. Jialin was also panicking, but she stared at Edisha flying in the sky. It's all like this, and Edisha hasn't expressed anything yet, so she doesn't believe it. This behemoth has nothing to do with Edisha. Sure enough, just when the bottom was about to collapse, Edisha in the sky was already smiling at the edge of the Edisha star. Master! Congratulations, Master, for your great improvement. Owner. Calling the Master again. Jialin frowned again, always feeling that Edisha's name was a bit weird. Didn't she call her brother Jiayan, the Master's brother? Why call a monster Master again? Could it be? This monster is the real Master, and his brother Jiayan is just its agent in the created world? In other words, this mosquito monster is my brother's boss, or even, his master, right? This thought grew and lingered in Jialin's mind, unable to be eliminated for a long time. Even though the monster's strength is astonishing, in her eyes, her black god brother is the most indomitable existence. It is difficult for her to accept that there is a master above him. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. Edisha, are these the helpers you found? Unexpectedly, the huge thing in the sky could actually make a sound, but his voice seemed to go straight into the soul, shocking everyone present. Can talk. Able to communicate and even get to know Edisha. Jialin's heart lit up. As long as you can communicate, you have a chance of survival. Ah, I called them from that world to help. This one is Jialin. The others are the Black God Guards. Edisha happily introduced both parties. The terrifying giant mosquito flying over the sky was naturally Jiayan, who had just come out of seclusion. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2965. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. What exactly is this? When the giant mosquito flew into the huge palace of 10,000 kilometers, the people here on the Edisha planet seemed to be still in a state of confusion. Editha flew down laughing and was in a great mood. This is Master Edisha. You will support him in his work from now on. Don't be afraid. He is very good. Ah! Jialin couldn't help but feel her heart beat out of her chest. In fact, the giant mosquito just flew into the palace over there. Thinking of such a huge palace, this kind of behemoth is the only one living there. Everything becomes reasonable. Are you still afraid? Oh, that's what Adissa said. Don't be afraid if Adissa tells the truth. Adisha has already been authorized by Jia Yan and can tell the truth to these people who created the coming of the world. Even if they don't say it, if they stay in the outside world for a long time, they will always hear about the battle between the Orion arm and the Bai family, and they can guess what it is if they think about it. It's better to make it clear directly. Adisha, you, just tell us, we can bear it. Think about it. If you can even accept a 1,000-kilometer palace and a 50-kilometer giant mosquito, what else can you not accept? After everyone in the creative world looked at each other, they all became confident. They believed that even if the facts that would hit RU were in front of them, it would not be worth the bolt from the blue. But the first word truth that Edisha said made them unable to hold their nerves. Haha, what Edisha said, actually. The one who flew over just now was your brother. Jialin was stunned, and the many masters of world creation behind her looked at each other in astonishment. As if I heard something incomprehensible, my mind entered a state of chaos for a moment. Because it's too difficult to understand. What does my brother have to do with that monster? Isn't my brother a black god? I've seen it before. How did it become that behemoth? Don't you understand yet? You're so stupid. Edisha put her hands on her hips and didn't understand the intelligence of these ordinary life forms. Please tell me clearly, I really don't understand. Jialin took a small breath and prepared to continue listening. Actually, apart from your brother, Edisha is not a real human being. Do you understand? Don't know. Hey, your brother is the giant mosquito, and your brother is his clone. Do you understand? Ah. Now I understand. Although I don't know what the true meaning of clone is, the word clone is like a bolt from the blue, hitting Jialin and the people behind her to death. Damn it, my brother Higami is not a real person at all, but a clone of that giant mosquito creature? Absurd and uninhibited, it is scorched inside and out. Thundering. Ha 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 ha, don't be scared. Editha has something else to say. For example, in the outside world, there are all huge creatures like Master's brother. Ah! Another shock. But in addition to giant creatures, there are also some miniaturized creatures, and you were created by imitating the people on Earth. Oh, by the way, in fact, the world you are in is where my brother and the white dolphin, that is, what you call the white god, are together. Edissa also put a lot of effort into making it, even your appearance was tampered with by Edissa, isn't that serious? This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Etc. After suddenly saying so much, Jialin and others said they could not understand. What does it mean that the world is all made? Aren't they and others born naturally? Also, the world they live in, Nyata, was actually created by man-made, it seems that it was originally made by the god of creation, but, it seems a little different from what they imagined. Listening to these words, it seems that it was just created not long ago. Adisha, I don't understand. What does it mean? Jialin said with a sad face, and she was a little at a loss. It's not interesting. By the way, you, Jialin, has a real identity on Earth. You are her replica. Adisha spoke bluntly, as if she didn't see Jiolin's face turn pale after hearing this. Puff, puff, puff. Isn't it funny? Adisha covered her mouth and laughed, as if she was very happy. Snapped. A palm slapped her from the back of the head, knocking her from flying in the air. Who dares to hit the great Adisha? Adisha was furious, thinking that there was something wrong with some robot program. But when he looked back, he saw the familiar face of the young man in black. He suddenly became silent and did not dare to say anything. You little devil, are you still unable to understand the delicate emotions of human beings? You don't understand what can be said, what can't be said, and how to say it? Jia Yan's black god clone knew that something was going on, so he greeted his real body, passed on the many research materials he had obtained in the demon sect, and then flew straight to the Edisha planet. Sure enough, this little guy is acting like a monster. Fortunately, he took action early, otherwise Edisha might have frightened the cheap girl in front of her. But that's okay, what she said was all true, and it was enough of a shock that it wouldn't be difficult to explain it in detail. Elder brother. Jiolin's eyes lit up, and she wanted to step forward to greet her, but thinking of what Edisha had just said, she stopped moving forward, feeling a little hesitant. Edisha is right, I am indeed that. But I am still me, including the person over there, who is also me, so don't worry so much. Jia Yan sighed. Jiolin thought for a while and asked with some uncertainty, brother, then Edisha said that I imitate someone's life, is this true? Jia Yan smiled again, a smile that made Jiolin a little frightened, fearing that she had heard something as cold as what Edisha said. But Jia Yan is not Edisha. He did not answer directly, but looked at Jiolin and said sincerely, you are you, my sister. For a moment, Jiolin didn't even notice that she was bursting into tears. She had been scared by Edisha several times, and she had long been quite uneasy, fearing that her brother would also become a stranger. Although it is quite unfamiliar now, the attitude is no different from before. This is the greatest psychological comfort to her. Anyway, I came here to tell you that from now on, you can treat the person over there just like you treat me. To be honest, there is no essential difference between what I am talking to and what he is talking to, so I hope you don't. If you are afraid, he will not arrange for you to do dangerous things. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. Yes, we all know. The group of black divine guards behind Jiolin all nodded in silence. Unlike Jiolink, their status does not allow them to act coquettishly or show off their worries, otherwise they will be sent back if it is a minor case, or they may die if it is a serious case. Anyway, regardless of whether they are manufactured or not, they stand here and their strength is really at the venerable level. This is the reality. After all, it's all about sacrificing one's life. Wouldn't it be safer to sacrifice one's life for a being with astonishing strength? Once you understand the essence, there won't be so much to worry about. Edisha put her fingers in her mouth and listened to Jia Yan deal with these matters. She also looked at Jiolin and everyone else's gradually calming down. Is there? I figured something out. It seems that you have to speak tactfully. There are a lot of talking skills and other things in her memory bank, but she seems to be unable to use them, and it is difficult for her to understand such delicate life emotions. She doesn't know how to use them, so she always says the wrong things. But she is listening attentively and learning attentively. Next time I encounter a similar situation, I may still make mistakes, but I will eventually get better. Okay, brother, master, you can go into seclusion, and Edisha will play with them. Edisha suddenly flew to Jia Yan's side. She still remembered that they were playing a very fun game before Jia Yan's real body broke through. Jia Yan was helpless, but he really didn't have that much time, So he nodded and his whole body dissipated like water ripples. He entered the outer space of the planet and returned to the nearby palace in an instant. Feeling that Black God seemed to be more at home in the outside world, the group of venerable level guards felt a little secretly happy. As strong men, they naturally understand that the laws of the seemingly empty outside world are more complete. When creating the world, they are always under the pressure of the world. It seems that they can never break through to the level of the venerable. And here, at least they don't feel any oppression. It seems that as long as they are talented enough and diligent enough, they can reach unimaginable levels. Black God made a good vote for them. So they decided that no matter what the truth behind the creation of the world was, if they had this opportunity, they should seize it. Jia Yan's Black God clone came to the giant Mosquito in the next moment. There was little dialogue. Talking to yourself is a stupid thing to do. Black God Jia Yan just sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. On the other side, the giant Mosquito Jia Yan's compound eyes flickered for a moment, then gradually fell into darkness, as if they had lost their luster. Of course, do you really think? He fell asleep and came to attack, which would be a fool. Even if he breaks through, he is ready to meet the enemy at any time, let alone now that the breakthrough is over. The arrangements have been made, and now we have to measure my improved self-strength and see if the information possessed by so many clones will be helpful to me. Jia Yan entered another state of thinking. He is integrating the information from so many clones to see if there is anything useful to him. Especially the memories emanating from the Black God's clone, Jia Yan always felt that they were helpful to him. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Jia Yan has already roughly mastered the training techniques in the demon sect, and there is no need to master them down to the smallest detail, because what he needs is just an idea, rather than really wanting to practice the demon sect skills. First of all, let's see how much I have become stronger after swallowing the white dolphin head this time. Jia Yan acted vigorously and resolutely. After all, he felt that those senior domain lords would definitely take action against him, and the monkey clone also sent news. Wu Zun gave him a good deal and told what those senior domain lords would do to him. Action. Therefore, before the war begins, it is the most basic method to have a clear grasp of your improved strength. In terms of feeling, it is definitely stronger than the senior domain masters, but the mental power is still much stronger than the physical body. Jia Yan could feel that after swallowing the white dolphin's mental power, his mental power was in a state of almost exploding. His physical body simply carried a lot of such terrifying mental power. And now, even if he swallowed a certain part of the white dolphin's body, and possibly the most powerful part of the head, this feeling has not disappeared. It seems that my physical strength can be maximized and balanced with my mental strength only after I have completely swallowed the entire body of the white dolphin. After feeling the difference between mental power and physical strength, he then carefully understood the level of physical strength. This realization brought me joy. Absolutely above senior domain lords. Jia Yan's eyes flickered. In fact, at a level above the senior domain master, he was already blind. Except for feeling the strength of some powerful people at the beginning, he has never really met anyone who is more than a senior domain lord from beginning to end. Therefore, for those who are above the realm of senior domain master, he is in a state of blindness. Originally, it was thought that it would be difficult to achieve the strength of a senior domain lord or above, so Jia Yan was ready to delay his cultivation for another 100 or even hundreds of years. After such a long time, how can I see a strong person who is more than 2 senior domain lords with my own eyes? In that way, I can know what that realm is like. But what he never expected was that a white dolphin jumped out and asked Zhiyuan to give him a life bet that created the world. Jia Yan won the bet and was immediately promoted to senior domain lord or above. But he was a little blind for a while, because he didn't even know the status, prospects, and strength of this realm. Oh, that's why I'm so good. I never thought I was so good. Jia Yan shook his head narcissistically. My realm is probably the so-called Region Lord's Peak. I'm just one step away from entering the later stages of the galaxy. However, it's not that easy to cross this level, let alone swallow up the rest. Whether the white dolphin can do it in the physical body, even if it is swallowed again, I am afraid that it may not be able to reach the lower level of the galaxy. The relationship between the lower level of the galaxy and the Territory Lord is a huge leap, and Jia Yan doesn't think he can cross it so easily. It is even possible that when you reach that level, no external force can simply help you break through. In fact, senior domain lords cannot simply break through with external force, but there is always an exception. The training methods of White Dolphin and Jia Yan, the laws of talent, and many subtleties. This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The perceptions are very similar. After Jia Yan devoured it, it naturally helped greatly and became a senior domain master or above. If the two had not had such complementary effects in cultivation, White Dolphin would not have begged for nothing and wanted to compete with Jia Yan in creating the world. I guess even if I search the entire galaxy, I still can't find another two powerful men who are so similar. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2966. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Of course, White Dolphin thinks that he is similar to Jia Yan. At least Jia Yan knows that he is not so similar to White Dolphin. He had what the White Dolphin had, and he had a lot of what the White Dolphin didn't have, otherwise how could he have lost so miserably? The top of the Domain Lord. Jia Yan's eyes flickered. He was weighing whether the peak combat power of a Territory Lord could be considered the pinnacle in the Northern Territory. The Northern Territory has strangled my evolved beasts in history. By analogy, they will not be so friendly now. Maybe they will launch another joint attack on the Orion Arm. Although they have reached this point at this level, I am no longer so afraid, but I no longer want another war. The Orion Arm also has overall strength. After fighting once or twice, the foundation can still hold up, and you may even get a lot of benefits from the outside world because of the victory, strengthening various affairs that have just opened the star field and are extremely lagging behind. But fighting too much would be a waste of national power, let alone fighting with the Northern Territory. Even if the Bai family's forces are ready to fight again, if the masters don't go to the battlefield and are not killed by Jia Yan, they can just rely on the troops at the bottom, forcibly draining the Orion Arm into incomparable emptiness. There are countless such examples in history. Instead of trying to improve the Orion Arm, Jia Yan may have no choice but to adopt the method of his predecessor, the Evolved Beast Senior, and reseal the Orion Arm. I can't reverse history, so to prevent similar situations, can I take the initiative? Yes, now that the strength has been raised to the peak of the Territory Lord, if things go well, he can still devour the remaining two large parts of the White Dolphin body, which will probably greatly enhance his own strength, and he will not be afraid of many other peaks of the Territory Lord. In this northern domain, according to Jia Yan's calculations, even if there are Domain Lord peaks, there will not be more than 3 or 5 at most. Although he, the newly promoted Territory Lord, cannot be compared with other people at the same level who have been immersed for countless years in all aspects, don't forget that Jia Yan is a subspace talent. There is also the Onmyedo with explosive properties. In addition, if there is anything gained from this retreat from cultivation techniques such as the Demon Sect, the strength can be improved a bit. In this way, even if he confronts a serious lower-ranking Domain Lord, there won't be any big problem. If you have any questions, just leave. The two Domain Lords came to the top and slipped away. Yes, since I'm worried that the Northern Territory will join forces to destroy my Orion arm again, I might as well attack first. There is an old saying from a great man. Punch away with one punch, lest hundreds of punches come your way. There has always been discord between the Northern Territory and the evolved beasts. In other words, the feud has started since the first generation of evolved beasts. In the early days of the Northern Territory, they were all powerful and could be regarded as giants in the area. Oh no, not at the beginning. Even now, they are still giants and invincible. But the first generation of evolved beasts, probably nearly a million years ago, dared to cause trouble in the Northern Territory's limelight. That person was only a star at that time. He relied on his talent of gravitational waves to defeat several domain lords. As a result, the Northern Territory bosses were collectively dissatisfied. Several senior territory lords emerged, the gravitational wave system collapsed, and the senior evolved beast was killed. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. They didn't know it at that time, but the evolved beast was a specialty of the Orion arm. Until the second, third, fourth, 7 or 8 people came forward one after another, and it was not until the senior Tianji from 200,000 years ago that they finally figured out the tricks of the evolved beasts. That's the Orion arm specialty. If you want to exterminate the evolved beasts, you have to destroy the Orion arm. Henceforth, Tianji was defeated and the Orion arm was finally sealed. When Jia Yan knew that 1 or 2 of his evolution beast seniors were stupidly heading to the Northern Territory, he thought that those seniors were crazy or just stupid. However, after actually understanding the development and situation of the nearby star field, he understood this. Things are inevitable. Just like, although he had been hiding, he subconsciously bypassed the Northern Territory and went straight to the galaxy's central star territory to develop, and reached the senior territory lord level in one breath, but when he looked back, didn't he still break into the Northern Territory? In this area, the Northern Territory cannot be bypassed. However, they are essentially hostile to the Orion arm. So, it's better to have a fight. At least compared to other senior evolution beasts, his strength is much stronger. If the problem of the Northern Territory can be solved in his generation, it will be of benefit to generations to come. Although it sounds simple, the evaluation, inner weighing, and adjustment of one's own energy that Jia Yan needs to do are still quite troublesome. So it takes a lot of time. He stayed in seclusion for a long time. Several days have passed, and the group of people on the Edisha star have gradually become accustomed to their current life and status. Especially Jia Lin. She found that what she actually had to do was very simple, that is, just like in the past, as if she were creating a world, she still mainly played with Aditha. As long as you don't think about so many problems such as creating the world and having the giant mosquito be your brother, it's actually quite easy to get by if you just mess around with your life. Edisha, what is this robot? This is called an earth digging robot. Look, that's my digging playground over there. Let's just go over there and let it dig dirt. Edisha took Jia Lin to play with the digging robot. Before long, a large area of Edisha dedicated to digging was riddled with holes by digging robots. However, these damages did not cause any changes to the scenery of Edisha star, because this is a dedicated digging area distributed in Edisha star. The land is soft, and the area will automatically recover next time you come back. Jia Lin, why haven't you asked my brother about the master for so many days? Edisha suddenly asked this question without thinking. Jia Lin was stunned and stopped operating the earth-moving robot. She thought for a while and said bluntly, actually, I don't know what to ask. When I come to the outside world, it seems that many things are unfamiliar to me, so I think that instead of thinking about my brother's affairs, it's more important to think of happy things. Wow, Edisha is like that too. Adisha suddenly turned into a life. It's hard to think about it too much. Adisha seemed to have found something in common with Jialin again. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Jialin looked at her deeply and realized that there were still great differences between people. Are you sincerely communicating? Okay. You, Adisha, are just messing around. When they were chatting again and preparing to start a new game, there was new movement in the palace behind them. The huge 10,000-kilometer level palace lingers in the depths of subspace, and its presence is so strong that even if everyone is used to deliberately ignoring the palace over there, every time they look up at the sky, they will consciously or unconsciously pay attention to the movement there. Pavilion. At this time, there was movement in this majestic palace, and they felt it instantly. Adisha, please send the palace out of the subspace. It seems those new friends have arrived. Jia Yan's voice, like morning bells and evening drums, sounded throughout the 10-dimensional space. Okay, Adisha will do it now. Adisha left Jialin behind and flew into the air, where she linked her fingers in the air as if operating something. What's going on here? What old friend? Where are we going? Jialin and the guards who created the world looked at each other, feeling on pins and needles, but they didn't know who to ask. Soon, they felt that the palace began to slowly accelerate, and the Edisha star following behind the palace also showed signs of movement. For them, this subspace is their first stop when they come to the outside world. So I thought that chaos was the theme of the outside world. But unexpectedly, as the levels of the subspace became shallower one after another, the sense of crisis in the depths of the subspace gradually disappeared. Until the third subspace, even those powerful men at the venerable level could I realized that subspace has an end. And that end seems safer. Puff. The majestic and domineering giant palace was like a supergiant beast in the starry sky. It swallowed clouds and puffed out mist, knocking open large areas of subspace, and finally broke through the first level space area and came to a new world with bright stars. This place is very similar to the starry sky that created the world. But those stars dotted in the darkness are far more real than the stars in the created world. Each one is so vivid and mysterious, as if all the stars in the created world are fakes. In fact, it is indeed a fake. Is this the real upper realm? Immortal world? Everyone was talking nonsense. For them, whether it is the God realm, the immortal realm, or simply the upper realm. In short, the world that appeared in front of them really met the definition of the upper world in their minds. After knowing that the creator gods are actually powerful creatures in this world, and that the world they created was a world created by the creator gods for the purpose of war, their feelings towards the Milky Way are extremely complicated. That is, I want to find out a little bit, but I am also full of fear. But the reality in the rumors was before their eyes, and it was completely different from the feeling they had imagined for many days. It's hard to explain, but most of them really had wet eyes. Wow, there is really a powerful force flying over. As soon as Edisha left the subspace, she activated the detector that had been hidden nearby, and then detected a very powerful energy source. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. And there's more than one. Brother Master is so powerful, Edisha didn't even notice it. Edisha admired Jia Yan's increased detection ability. A voice flew out of the palace, it's just that they didn't hide their whereabouts. If you increase your strength to the Domain Lord level, you can also do this. Edisha closed her mouth as if she was choking. How can this topic continue? She is only at the peak of the Venerable level, less than half a star level. Isn't it too early to talk about the Territory Lord level now? Master topic Terminator. Edisha pouted, and then looked in the direction of the energy prompt. The other visitors to the creation world also unanimously looked in the direction Edisha was looking. Their Edisha star did not fly out of the subspace like a palace, but was in the corner between the subspace and the real world, half outside and half inside. The area where everyone is located is the outside world, so they can clearly see the starry sky, but they can also retreat to the subspace anytime and anywhere. This is for safety reasons. Not long after watching, these beings at the level of venerables were all frightened. Because from the other end, there were terrifying auras like an abyss. This is different from the aura of the powerful in the created world. It's so real that people can't imagine it, but at the same time, there's an aura that people can't believe is real because it's too powerful. There is a vague sense of rivalry with the giant mosquito-like black god true body, that is, Lord Giant Mosquito. Are these all on the same level? They gasped. The strength of the giant mosquito had already made them think that it should not be a person in the world. However, not long after leaving the twisted space, they directly bumped into so many strong men who had reached the same level. Is it so scary outside? This group of venerable level powerhouses who created the world all made similar voices with a tacit understanding in their hearts. Mom, I want to go home. This is just what people inside Edisha's star think. In the palace, Jia Yan did not have this idea. The giant mosquito stood proudly inside the palace, calmly feeling the shocking aura gradually approaching from the distance. Tisk tisk. He also said that the two went back to retrieve the body parts of the white dolphin. Looking back, it seems that apart from the two of them, Zayashui has a lot more strange atmosphere. They are all senior domain lords. You said, is this the rhythm of wanting to hand over something? Doesn't look good at all. Jia Yan said to himself, since we are ready to quarrel, it depends on the strength of both parties. It just so happens that I do want to scare the monkeys. He had known for a long time that those two people would leave and would not give in easily. In addition, Wu Zun informed me, so I was completely prepared, both mentally and physically. But Wu Zun hasn't shown up yet. I hope he can make a wise judgment. At the very least, he can't stand on the opposite side. Otherwise, I can only forget the favor he reminded me. Feeling the world around him, although he could not directly detect other auras, Jia Yan could detect that there was another powerful person belonging only to the senior domain master, watching all this not far away. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. In the distance, a group of strong men walked hand in hand, turning into dazzling objects like stars. Soon some people felt the terrifying aura of this area. Hey, I didn't expect that before we even came to the door, this guy had already hit the muzzle of the gun. The one over there is the so-called Jia Yan, and he is also the ancient creature recorded in our powerful family, the evolved beast. If you have read the ancient books, you should be able to know how terrifying this kind of monster is. If there is an opportunity today, kill it, and if the coalition forces enter the Orion Arm in the future, they must slaughter all the living planets in the Orion Arm, destroy the soil where they were born, and avoid future troubles forever. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2967. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. I don't need to say it again. I'm here just because I agree with this concept. When they felt that Jia Yan and the huge palace appeared in this starry sky, the large number of powerful people who came over there did not hesitate at all and approached the starry sky openly. Both parties met like this when they were both mentally prepared. On the contrary, Jia Yan was slightly surprised when the other group of beings actually came to him and counted them. The quantity is quite large. At least as far as I could see, in addition to the two senior domain masters who asked them to go back and get the body parts of the white dolphin, there were 5 other senior domain masters arriving. According to Jia Yan's previous judgment, the number of senior domain lords in the entire Northern Territory will definitely not exceed 20. 7 of them came directly to the scene. If you add the hidden martial lord, they will directly account for there are about half the number of senior domain lords in the Northern Territory. You think highly of yourself. In the compound eyes of giant Mosquito, thousands of eye structures flicker, giving people a sense of mystery and intimidation as a whole. Two friends, we meet again. He did not directly explode the conflict, but took the opportunity to communicate. Your Excellency Jiayan, I haven't seen you for more than a month. Your style remains the same and your strength seems to be improving. The two defeated generals each looked indifferent, as if the fact that the three of them teamed up to defeat Jiayan had not caused any psychological shadow to them. In fact, it's not bad. Although they said they were defeated, to this day, no matter when talking to the powerful people they have attracted, or when they identify themselves, they don't think they have really lost. Discussions are different from actual combat. They didn't go all out, so how could they admit that they had failed? My strength has indeed improved, and I would like to thank the three of you for your cooperation that day. But I didn't expect that the two of you just went back to pick up the body, but you actually paid so much attention to it and invited so many friends to escort the body of the white dolphin. It's really important. Thank you very much. The people in the back looked at each other strangely. This evolved beast had a very scary temperament just now, and it seemed that he would not hesitate to fight them immediately. But now that he is talking sweetly, his temperament seems to have changed, and he is very cunning. No, it gave him the right to speak, as if this group of people came to deliver the body of the white dolphin. The two defeated generals were also talented people. How could they be at a disadvantage in such a matter? The person in charge suddenly smiled unscrupulously. Congratulations to Your Excellency Jiayan, but is Your Excellency Jiayan a little too confident because of this improvement? After all, no matter how much you improve your strength, the number of people like us will not be able to fight against you simply by improving your strength. Jiayan turned his attention to the many senior domain lords with different expressions behind this powerful man. Haha, I don't need you to worry about whether I am confident or not. I still say the same thing now, have you brought anything? Good guy. Including the two senior domain masters, many other visitors also became strange. Is this Jiayan really so bold? Is he blind, or is he so confident that he doesn't take the world seriously? This chapter is not finished, click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Experts from all walks of life are gathered here. If you don't lower your head and choose an opportunity to escape, you still want something? Ordinary yet confident, he is an ordinary man. But when they held the round table meeting, they were not prepared to let the evolved beast escape, so no matter what, they had to fight this battle. It would be better if Jiayan had awareness. The things, we brought naturally. We keep our promise, but if you want to get it, it depends on your own ability. The senior domain master who dominated the discourse said with a fierce dagger, at the beginning, you didn't promise to return it unconditionally, right? After all, we paid a price to get it from Wuzun. In this way, if you agree to part of 1,000 star cores. If you can't take it out, let's not talk about the star core. Jiayan directly interrupted the man's continued speech. The other party was stuck by Jiayan, but his expression was as if nothing had happened, and he said, since you can't come up with it, let's let this matter go. If you can leave voluntarily, I will see that there is no big friction between the two parties, so I will let you go, but if you are stubborn, then, the powerful men from the Northern Territory present will not agree. The words that were spoken were tried their best to cover up the truth. But the group of other senior domain lords, who had not spoken a word when they arrived, began to slowly surround Jiayan, and they could already see that what they said and what they did were completely different. This is the plan to keep Jia Yan in the Northern Territory forever. Oh. I only need to give up that part of the body of the white dolphin to leave. Yes, Your Excellency Jia Yan, do you want to choose this option? Of course not, you can't let me go if you wait. For a moment, everyone was silent, and the atmosphere became more intense. A battle that only belonged to the senior domain master level was about to break out. Be careful, this Lord Jia Yan is gifted in subspace. His giant palace may have some attack capabilities, so be careful. At this moment, among the others who were at war with each other, someone finally spoke. Jia Yan simply turned his attention to these people and said slowly, "Everyone, this is the first time we meet, right? I, Jia Yan, ask myself, I have no grudges with you in the past, and I have no grudges recently. Why do you come to trouble me?" There was still a long silence, and finally a flat-shaped strong man said lightly, "The evolved beasts and I, the Northern Territory, have a feud. Although we don't want to repeat the mistakes of our ancestors, who knows whether you evolved beasts will hold grudges. So I'm sorry, Your Excellency Jia Yan, you must stay here today." Jia Yan sighed, "It turns out that this is still the fault of the feud between our ancestors. It seems that this matter cannot be resolved peacefully." The two sides did not continue the dialogue. The 7 people on the opposite side lined up for a long time, thinking that they had locked the entire subspace. There was also a certain strong man who had the ability to disrupt the entire subspace. At least the 3rd level of the subspace was not easy to enter. Unless Jia Yan can fly, jump over the first 3 levels, and directly enter the 4th level of space, he is destined to be unable to borrow the secondary space for this battle. If it were a smarter person, after assessing the situation, he would either give in first, leave the encirclement and then fall out, or attack before the opponent's encirclement is completed. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. But Jia Yan kept waiting, watching helplessly as 7 huge strong men surrounded him in the circle. "I have to say, Your Excellency Jia Yan, I still admire your courage." Finally, a strong man who had never spoken a word raised his head and looked directly into Jia Yan's thousands of compound eyes. Jia Yan has long discovered that this talent should be the leader of the entire Senior Domain Lord team, because his strength is slightly higher than other Senior Domain Lords, and even Wu Zun may be inferior. The evolved beast seniors all have the same temper. "I'm pretty good at it." Jia Yan did not accept his praise. The other party nodded, so the evolved beast clan is a hidden danger. Originally, we were not firm enough. But what you said has strengthened our approach. I don't know, you guys, what is the so-called approach? Talking before a war is not unacceptable to the strong. At this level, if the bad guys say a few more words, it is no longer as superfluous in the eyes of the people on Earth. Because of this level of force value, almost nothing can affect the outcome of the battle between the two sides. If we are lucky enough to kill you, we will go to the Orion Arm and eradicate the entire land cursed by the evolved beasts. Jia Yan was a little surprised when he heard this. Just because of the emergence of the eternal evolution beast, are they planning to massacre the entire Orion Arm? But yes, Senior Tianji must have had similar thoughts when he faced enemies 200,000 years ago. Otherwise, why would he go all out to block all the Orion Arms, causing the Orion Arm to be isolated from the outside world for 200,000 years? I have to say that regardless of the concept of friend or foe, your policy is quite careful and perfect. It is more than 100 times better than my last opponent, the White Dolphin. Jia Yan couldn't help but praise him. He didn't even know the names of most of these enemies, but they were decisive in killing them. Compared to the White Dolphins who were hesitant in creating the world and couldn't even restrain their subordinates, they were not at the same level. Do it? Jia Yan's approval failed to receive a response. because the 7 strong men were fully prepared to attack. The high-spirited senior domain masters present immediately entered an all-out fighting state. The one who bore the brunt was the strongest senior domain master. He was ready to get rid of it once and for all. He took the lead and came to Jia Yan with lightning and flint, and used his unique skill. The fist suddenly expanded. The racial talent of this strong man is that he can expand a certain part of his body, and it is not as simple as expansion, but to instantly transfer the weight of other parts of the body to it. This seemingly humble ability is actually unpretentious and truly powerful. For the ultimate move, as long as he transfers the mass of other parts quickly enough, the attack power contained in the fist will also increase exponentially without affecting the initial speed. It can be said that he is a different kind of possessor of explosive force value. Well done. Jia Yanyi was not afraid. Without having any specific information about the opponent, he summoned up his mental power. First, he gently wrapped his mental power around the opponent's fist, trying to neutralize the power of the punch as much as possible, and then turn your entire foot blue, follow the direction of the opponent's attack, and thrust your toes onto his fist. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. The situation of the confrontation between the two is an understatement. At least in half the space, Jia Lin and other visitors to the creation world were looking at this shocking battle with horror, as if they were in a dream. If thrown into the world of creation, this blow would be enough to destroy the world of creation. What kind of spiritual power is this? As Jia Yan's main opponent, the strong man with enlarged fists has an even more exciting expression. He first felt a spiritual force that should not belong to the ordinary senior domain lord level, and it directly wrapped his fist. Originally, it was difficult for such an invisible thing to have any impact on his attack, but he actually hit it. He felt the solidification and sluggishness of his fist. The mental power is too strong. He hasn't gotten any information about this evolved beast's unprecedentedly powerful mental power from Jia Yan's intelligence book. Probably the 2 senior domain masters from before didn't even detect this, or they concealed it deliberately. Anyway, I tricked him. Secondly, Jia Yan's toes came to the front of his fist, and the positive and negative force plus the azure brilliance, like a dazzling meteor, blocked his attack in one breath and rushed back, causing his fist to. There was a huge wound visible to the naked eye on the front. These 2 points were the most shocking to him. They didn't have much information about Jia Yan, at least no one said that Jia Yan was extremely mentally powerful and had extremely strong hand-to-hand combat abilities. Even these 2 things that were not mentioned were so terrifying. He could not imagine how astonishing this evolved beast's subspace talent and yin-yang power that were highlighted by the intelligence were. Actually, Jia Yan's mental strength is indeed not far above his own level. But that was before. Now, in terms of mental strength, he is no longer what he used to be. The journey of creating the world itself is a process of polishing the mental power, and in addition, it swallows up the mental power of the white dolphin. You must know that it is complete mental power. In terms of mental power alone, he should have gained the most from the journey of creating the world so far. The biggest piece. Of course, the premise is that before swallowing the other body of the white dolphin. As for physical combat, this is because the opponent's intelligence underestimated him. With the help of yin-yang dao skills, Jia Yan's hand-to-hand combat ability is already outstanding, but compared to the yin-yang dao explosive ability, this kind of hand-to-hand combat ability doesn't look that outstanding. Bang! Just as Jia Yan forced the man in front of him away, roaring pressure came from behind. A strong man turned his arm into a cylinder, and a bullet spurted out from his arm. It was about to hit Jia Yan's head in a flash of lightning. Jia Yan quickly lowered his head and dodged the sneak attack. But the bullet made a circle in the starry sky and returned to the inside of the barrel. It turns out that this monster is also a different race. The arms can be replaced with gun barrels, and the fists are retracted into the barrel and sprayed out, which are bullets with unimaginable power. What other unique moves are there? I'm really looking forward to it. Jia Yan also didn't know whether the peculiar talents of these two people were the result of the self-evolution of their race, or whether they were consciously cultivated in the process of becoming stronger. Anyway, he was very excited. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Thinking of the Jianghu Star territory below, Wuzhen is quite unique. In addition, there is a demon sect in the Jianghu Star territory, which is also a shining point. Now that he saw so many strange people and strangers, he quickly realized that the Northern Territory was different from the central star field of the Milky Way, or different from many places in the entire galaxy. It should be an area with many strange people and strangers. Speaking of which, Jia Yan seems to be considered a native life within the influence of the Northern Territory, and he is an evolved beast and one of the strange people. This area is quite interesting. Come again. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2968. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. The creature with an expanded body swelled under its feet. After the expansion force was ejected, its speed suddenly increased to the limit, and it instantly arrived in front of Jia Yan. Its fist expanded again and its attack power doubled. Jia Yan was not afraid. His front feet collided with each other, and the 2 feet suddenly turned into positive and negative forces with opposite attributes. The mutual repulsive power of the feet exploded, triggering a chain reaction. The power of the entire foot became like a rocket jet, suddenly connecting with the visitor's fist. Both sides have extremely powerful attacks, but Jia Yan's moves not only have extremely powerful attack power, but also have extraordinary defensive power. Because his toes are formed by azure defense. The expansion creature has already seen this, but he did not come to trigger a new round of confrontation just to be repelled by Jia Yan again. His purpose is to attract Jia Yan's main attention. He did not go to the meeting alone. Instead, it was Jia Yan who went to the meeting alone. Behind the expansion creature were 6 partners who worked together with him. Well, I'm afraid it's impossible for senior domain lords to have a deep friendship, but at least during this war, they who formed a temporary alliance could still reach a joint relationship under mutual supervision. Destroying the Great Wall by oneself is something that few people in the Northern Territory would do. Jia Yan gave up chasing this powerful man who was repelled by the power of his yin and yang dao. New attackers appeared behind them. You can't enter the subspace and still be so arrogant and domineering. The strong man had a metal armor, and the armor seemed to have formed a certain growth relationship with the skin and muscles on his body. It was obviously not as simple as an ordinary technological creation. When Jia Yan looked back and struck, and was shocked by the armor. He staggered back half a step, and his eyes quickly brightened. As expected, the people in the Northern Territory are all strange people. This armored body must be some kind of unique talent. So hard. Well. On the contrary, the other party showed a quite shocked expression at this moment. Because on his chest where he was stabbed by Jia Yan's blue foot, the metal exoskeleton was penetrated deeply, and blood was flowing inside. This was the reason why he was so frightened. After all, he was the number 1 in defense that was envied by everyone in the Northern Territory. Even several senior domain masters with strong attack power felt inferior to him when they came in front of him, saying that he was a tough nut to crack and gave up fighting him. But when it was Jia Yan's turn, he was actually injured with 1 blow. Who am I, where am I, what am I doing? The expression of the senior domain master with invincible defense became even weirder. He no longer faced off head-on. He took half a step back and formed a new armor in front of his chest. This time, it was 3 or 4 layers thick and could withstand any resistance. Jia Yan's next foot attack. This Jia Yan is too fierce. There was a senior domain master behind him who had not joined the battle group, and his eyes became intense. 4 or 5 senior domain masters had just met Jia Yan for the first time, but no one really threatened Jia Yan's safety. This shows that this evolved beast, whose skills are astonishing to everyone, may still have some strength left. Because even his subspace talent has been blocked, Jia Yan's several fighting methods that have been emphasized by the intelligence department have shown no signs of showing up so far. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Spiritual talent, stab. The senior domain master who had been watching for a moment suddenly saw an opportunity and shot out his spiritual power. This force was not too amazing, but it created some kind of wind pressure at the front end and shot into Jia Yan's giant mosquito head extremely quickly. But such an injection is not of a physical nature. As long as the opponent wants to attack physically and mentally, Jia Yan's Azure defense will automatically launch counter-attacks and defenses. Presumably he will not succeed so easily. And what he is taking now is to attack spiritual power. This kind of attack is silent, and the effect is no worse than ordinary physical attacks. As long as the mental strength of the person being attacked is not as strong as the mentally gifted person, it is easy for the brain to be damaged and the movements to be deformed, or even directly losing your mind is possible. However, this mentally gifted man who had found the right opportunity missed one thing. That's his mental talent. Is it really stronger than that of the evolved beast? Perhaps this is how it appears in terms of intelligence. But he did not expect that the new power Jia Yan gained after creating the world was not captured by the intelligence agency. And this lag in intelligence will deal a heavy blow to the senior spiritual domain master. Bang! The senior domain lord felt that his mental power had hit an indescribably terrifying iceberg, like a cricket shaking a tree. His whole body was shaken violently, and then the blood in his head surged, nosebleeds spurted out from his nose, and his eyeballs all bulged out. What kind of mental strength is this? Far more than me. Is it his own mental counterattack, or does he have some kind of mental defense treasure? This spiritually gifted domain master was impatient and stumbled thousands of kilometers behind him, leaving the central area of the battle circle. This guy's strength is extraordinary. Not only him, the demeanor of many senior domain masters who surrounded Jia Yan also changed again and again after being unable to attack for a long time. No matter what, they cannot be vulnerable weaklings. On this point, the senior domain masters are still quite confident. After all, they have cultivated to the current level and the level is here. Even if they are idiots, they cannot be people who live in vain. However, in front of such a group of top-notch beings from the Northern Territory, Jia Yan actually resisted the joint attacks of all of them in a head-on confrontation, and even slightly injured 2 of them. This is still the case when Jia Yan's biggest reliance cannot be used, and several other combat methods are also refused to be used for some reason. If used, there was a bit of creepiness in their eyes. It is said that evolved beasts are good at fighting, but this one is too good at fighting, right? Wrong. Suddenly, a strong man vaguely thought of something, and his expression became extremely ugly. What's wrong? The other strong man's heart jumped suddenly, and he glanced at this strong man with questioning eyes. The intensity of his mental power is very abnormal, and the physical level and the way of applying energy seem to be unusual. If it is just talent, it should only be strong in one aspect, and it should not be stronger than 2 or 3 at most. But it is powerful but has a crushing nature. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. The man who spoke was a strong man in metal armor who had fought with Jia Yan several times. He was now scarred and miserable. Therefore, the judgment he made is quite authoritative. The hearts of several strong men who heard this suddenly started to beat rapidly. They all thought of a certain possibility. That is, has this evolved beast broken through to the senior domain lord level? For a moment, his eyes with fear and anxiety were cast on Jia Yan, who was still entangled with the two senior domain masters. Above senior domain lord. Lower level of domain lord. Each of these senior domain lords are geniuses, otherwise they would not have cultivated to the senior domain lord level. They had also read Jia Yan's information and were shocked at that time. He was a senior domain master in his early 100s. And this youth is also the biggest reason for them to kill this evolved beast. After all, the evolved beast and the Northern Territory are almost world enemies. Now that there is such a terrifying evolved beast, if it really reaches the level after the senior domain lord, wouldn't it have a devastating impact on the entire Northern Territory in a substantial sense? But no matter how sure they were of the talent of this evolved beast, they never expected that after the battle to create the world, this evolved beast would already have signs of breaking through the senior domain master at this time. This can no longer be explained by talent. They have lived for half their lives, and they have never heard of someone who can break through to the lower level of a territory lord at the age of more than 100 years old. At this age, wouldn't it be possible for the galaxy backstage above the territory lord to look forward to it? That's the true pinnacle of the galaxy. The territory lords and their ilk would all call him a godlike powerhouse, the kind of dragon that sees its head but never its tail. In an instant, a look of shock was written on the faces of all the strong men. Don't panic, so what if he is above the senior domain lords? The lower level domain lords who have just broken through are not necessarily the combined opponents of many senior domain lords like me. Yes, I've done everything. Now if I want to back down, what's the point? All the strong men were worthy of being strong in mind and strength. After a moment of uneasiness, they had already regrouped. What was not a concerted effort at first became a united one, and everyone's combat effectiveness increased sharply. Oh! This move suddenly became more powerful. Jia Yan felt a little surprised when he felt the powerful attack from the diagonal. Looking at the group of senior domain masters who had regrouped, he suddenly understood something. Do you see that I am no longer a senior domain master? Now that they have seen it, they still have expectations. It seems that these guys are still a bit brave. Unlike other large levels, there is no earth-shattering difference between the senior domain lord level and the lower domain lord levels. Of course, that is also an insurmountable gap, but this gap is not at a level that cannot be bridged by the number of people. At least as of now, this group of senior domain masters, who have worked together, think they have found a way to deal with Jia Yan. Put in more effort, don't be afraid of death or injury, and you can always kill Jia Yan. Hey, I'm not afraid that you won't go all out, but I'm afraid that you are still hesitant until now. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. This is what Jia Yan wants. The newly promoted strength will definitely be ineffective if it is not polished. Otherwise, he would not take the risk and fight in the normal starry sky, even if the opponent has exhausted his abilities and sealed off the subspace. Jade is not cut, not a device. This is especially true for the strong. When did Jia Yan break through? He did not immediately fight the enemy. Ahem, well, Jia Yan thinks that it's because he is unlucky. There is always a big enemy, and he doesn't admit that he is the one who causes trouble. In short, this time he had an enemy by his side to help hone his new strength, which he couldn't ask for more. In an instant, All the strong men present cooperated seamlessly. Senior domain lords are naturally gifted in combat. Even if they don't have any practice when working together, they are definitely not just some half-baked recruits. If the attack of the expansion powerhouse is neutralized or dodged, a metal exoskeleton powerhouse will suddenly hit him in front of him, and he barely dodges it, and a mental powerhouse behind him will attack Jia Yan, disturbing Jia Yan's movements. The assassination expert took advantage of the situation and boldly took the opportunity to launch an attack. Not to mention, it really posed a great threat to Jia Yan. Even if you are one level above them, you can't underestimate the world's heroes. Jia Yan defused all the attacks one by one without any danger, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If the senior domain lord cannot be considered a hero, there will be no heroes in the world. The joint attack of the seven masters brought great obstacles to Jia Yan. The fight lasted for 5 or 6 minutes, and neither side could do anything to the other. It doesn't matter if you can't eat for a while. Based on previous experience, there is only one person, but there are thousands of ways for us to cooperate. There will always be one that can kill him. How could the 7 strong men not see that Jia Yan was using them to weaken his own strength after promotion? But even so, they believe there is no risk of failure. Jia Yan is honing his new strength, so why aren't they practicing their cooperation to a proficient level in actual combat? As long as the fight continues, their cooperation will become even more perfect. Even Jia Yan will have gained new strength by then. How easy will it be to win against them who cooperate so well? Don't think about withdrawing your strength. We all know the meaning of death. We have already taken action today. If he escapes, I will have to live in fear for the rest of my life. This is the most authentic portrayal of the mood of the people present. In order to surround Jia Yan, they rose up. Now that the siege has been blocked, they have also discovered that this evolved beast is far more terrifying than they imagined, but it will not help to evacuate at this time, because Jia Yan will definitely miss everyone present. How long has it been since we, the senior domain lords of the Northern Territory, can still be so united? It's all because of the appearance of the evolved beasts that there is such a grand occasion, but, this guy is too strong. The people in the field continued to attack for about half an hour, and the levels of both sides were rising in a spiral. Although Jia Yan's strength has improved, his opponent's coordination skills have also improved. This has led to the two sides falling into an endless loop where neither can do anything about the other. The attentive few even vaguely felt that the reason for this situation seemed to be deliberately guided by Jia Yan. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Thinking of this, they felt like they were falling into an ice cellar, and some of the plants and trees were full of soldiers, feeling uneasy. But are they right? In fact, it's really correct. Jia Yan has been holding back some of his ultimate moves to no avail. Now is not the time to use his ultimate move. He needs to use the strong men in front of him to hone his new combat effectiveness. When I ran away from Biostar, who could have imagined that one day I would beat up 7 senior domain masters? Although he failed to achieve an overwhelming victory, he was in a very happy mood. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2969. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. This battle was so intense and exciting that the pressure felt after being besieged was something I haven't felt for a long time. If you can win every minute and scatter and defeat the enemy forces in front of you, it is really difficult to get similar enemy forces to encircle and suppress them recently. There is no place to look for them. So he deliberately pretended to be clumsy and almost suffered a huge defeat. He's going to die. Whoops, everyone, please work harder. Haha, compared to the physical strength consumed by the 7 of us, compared to this one person, of course he can't consume us. You fell into the trap. Jia Yan. Soon, The 7 powerful men present looked ecstatic and proud, and seemed to have identified Jia Yanzong's delaying plan. It's normal. After all, everyone can think of which aspect consumes more physical energy, a person fighting in a will fight or a person stepping forward to beat others. Only 5 minutes later, Jia Yan showed some signs of exhaustion, which made everyone feel like they were in a state of ecstasy. Jia Yan was still so calm and clear, and it was very difficult to dodge everyone's accelerating attacks. 10 minutes later, Jia Yan was still silent, struggling to resist the attack. An hour later, he was as embarrassed as ever, but among the many senior domain masters who were besieging him, 2 already said that they had been fighting for a long time and were a bit overwhelmed. Can it be delayed any longer? He must have exhausted all his physical strength. If we continue, we can definitely kill him. When someone makes such remarks, he is greeted with dull and stupid looks. This guy has weird physical abilities. After a short moment of silence, the strong man with the metal exoskeleton softened. He was the one with the greatest physical load. That's right. One of Jia Yan's characteristics began to show up. He is a man with strong endurance. Jia Yan's physical fitness is explosive. This is a good advantage that Jia Yan has maintained since his early days. Now it shows again. There were several changes, and everyone present was almost crying. Discouraged. Wasn't it agreed that this evolved beast only has the explosive power of subspace and yin-yang dao? Why are brainwave strength, physical fitness, and the terrifying close combat ability so excellent? Those guys who are doing intelligence work should be arrested and beheaded. Of course, the biggest intelligence error is that this guy Jia Yan seems to have reached the level of senior domain lord. This is too scary, okay. A more than 100-year-old junior domain lord. Jia Yan ignored these frustrated beings. After fighting fiercely for an hour, he was still panting and looking at his situation. The decline in strength is certain, but the opponent's 7 people have not gained any advantage. Especially one of them, after barely exchanging a few moves with himself, was injured and became afraid of fighting. As for Jia Yan himself, he had some scars, which was nothing compared to others. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Hey, everyone, if you wait now, do you think you have suffered heavy casualties? How about we sit down and talk? Jia Yan's joking laughter caused everyone to fall silent. Soon someone said calmly, "Why are you sitting down and talking? This guy may be at the end of his game." Yes, even if we agreed on something, if he escaped from danger afterwards, would he abide by it? The expressions of all the strong men changed again and again. Jia Yan's power is obvious to all. None of them could survive even a minute if they were in Jia Yan's position, but others could survive for an hour. This is without using the subspace talent and showing the explosive ability of Yin and Yang Dao. If they persisted, they might actually get killed or injured. But what about letting Jia Yan go? Who can guarantee that after what happened today, he will abide by the agreement and not come to sneak attack some of the 7 of them? It even evolved to the end, where he defeated each one by one, and all 7 of them were killed in the end. It was already a matter of life and death, so they couldn't retreat. Rather than encounter danger again then, it was better to fight to the death with Jia Yan now. Jia Yan, your strength is indeed unexpected. However, what can I say? You are also one of the 7 senior domain lords. No matter you have really reached the lower level of domain lords or faked it, among the 7 senior domain lords, you have no chance before the lord. Jia Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Facing the guy who made such nonsense, he said angrily, "Yes, I didn't have any chance, so with your all-out effort, I only suffered this little injury after fighting for an hour. Alas, I really didn't chance, I actually got a little injured, so it's better to just sit back and wait for death." You. The strong man also wanted to be shameless. When Jia Yan pointed out his speech problems in front of his face, he almost became hysterical. After all, he was a strong man, so he paused and endured it. It's hard for them. Jia Yan has been restrained by the subspace talent, but they are still unable to cause fatal damage to Jia Yan. This is a huge blow to the self-confidence of any senior domain master. Of course, after this kind of blow, they can make excuses. For example, Jia Yan is no longer a senior domain lord, but an existence above senior domain lord. But it's no use. If you lose, you may lose your life. Since the early intelligence work was not done well, you must bear the corresponding responsibility for the failure. Just when the hearts of the strong men were wavering, Jia Yan seized this juncture and launched his first counterattack. He seemed to seduce the group of people and hit the weakest injured person with his foot. He stabbed the opponent's body through the entire body, bringing up a trail of blood, and then quickly retreated. The injured person did not expect that Jia Yan was so bold that he would dare to attack him even though he was surrounded by a crowd. The strong men around him did not protect themselves wisely, but took counterattack measures the moment Jia Yan took action. But Jia Yan's speed still didn't slow down much, and he quickly slipped out of the encirclement like a slippery loach. Jia Yan, don't you dare to confront us head-on. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Until now, Jia Yan has been in a state near the peak, making his speed exceed that of everyone present. The pursuers, after seeing the speed of Jia Yan's escape, their hearts sank, and finally continued. All the provocative methods were used. Because they know that Jia Yan's physical fitness that he has maintained until now may not be just a fake as they imagined. Maybe he really has such animal-level physical fitness. Then why fight? Oh? Do you want me to avoid running away and be surrounded by you and get beaten? If I were stupid, I might do what you want, but I'm not stupid. Do you think this is possible? Jia Yan was on the outside of the circle surrounded by strong men, and he felt that what he saw in front of him was a group of weaklings. The speaker looked embarrassed for a while. How could he be mentally retarded? He was just using provocative tactics, and he said it casually. He didn't expect Jia Yan to label him. Fortunately, the people around him did not take this action seriously. They just stared at the area where Jia Yan was with extremely sinister expressions on their faces, with all kinds of thoughts flashing in their hearts. They also want to withdraw. You can tell just by looking at the speed. Jia Yan's physical ability is extremely strong. At first, he was just clumsy. But now, he has almost maintained the peak speed, but they have plummeted, and Jia Yan has become the fastest. No one in the audience could chase him. Under this situation, unless Jia Yan took the initiative to enter their encirclement as the previous person said, they would really have no way to kill him. You have already tried your best and spared no effort. Why is it that after fighting for a long time, it is still like this? You know, they are 7 senior domain masters. When they strangled other evolved beasts, they were not so difficult to kill. This group of senior domain masters just felt uncomfortable. They gathered all the members without any effort, just to not give this evolved beast any chance. Originally, this kind of force was definitely enough, but what they never expected was that this was the result. Wuzun! You bastard, get out of here! Suddenly, a senior domain master shouted loudly towards the surrounding starry sky. After waiting for a long time, there was no response from the starry sky. At this moment, another strong man sighed and said softly, "Martial Lord, I am the senior domain master of the Northern Territory. I should eradicate the enemy for this Northern Territory. As the Lord of the Jianghu Star Territory, you should don't you understand the meaning of lip death and tooth cold? Now, even if Jia Yan still has some strength left, with your full state, you can evenly match him. Coupled with our strength, killing this beast is a sure thing. Why do you haven't shown up yet? There was silence in the starry sky for a long time, and there was no sound. Wuzun seemed to have made up his mind and was unwilling to take the risk. In fact, it is normal. As a strong man, his own principles, or his stubborn temper, are much stronger than those of ordinary people. Wuzun had no intention of going out from the beginning. At most, he would just watch the battle. Now that he had made up his mind, he would not go back on his word easily. Of course, it cannot be ruled out that if the two sides are really evenly matched and both sides suffer, then he may not show up. But in that case, in addition to killing Jia Yan, it is unknown whether he will choose a few guys who are usually at odds with him to eradicate him, or whether there will be a mantis stalking the cicada and the oriole behind that will wipe out everyone. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. In short, he probably saw now that going against Jia Yan might not do any good, so he chose to remain silent. Jia Yan took action again. After listening carefully to the movements around him and deciding that the martial lord would not attack him secretly, Jia Yan continued the current battle situation. Because in addition to these senior domain masters, they are not the only ones who feel the huge threat. If the immediate threat is not resolved, and the hidden existence makes a voice later, maybe such a senior domain master will be enough to play a decisive role in the balance of the battlefield. He showed more ease. Just now, I felt like I was stuck on one side and on the other, feeling beyond my capabilities. Now he has transformed, and it feels like his fighting skills and control of energy have risen to a higher level. The senior domain masters present were all miserable. Comparing their combined fighting power, which dropped rapidly after physical exhaustion, Jia Yan's side began to feel better due to the siege by strong men. His physical strength is incredible, which is related to the fact that the genetic sequence of the evolved beast is quite perfect. Therefore, the perfection of this genetic sequence has led to excellent physical fitness, and has also led to the situation where the current 7 senior domain masters fell into a pit of physical exhaustion after fighting for a long time. They become weaker. Although Jia Yan has also become weaker, but not by much. Then Wuzun, what do you mean? Jia Yan was besieged for a long time by the group of senior domain masters in front of him and developed strong melee combat abilities. His own mental and physical strength also became more consistent due to the hour-long breakout to resolve the enemy's attack. The power that had previously been swallowed by the white dolphin, especially the excess, was either completely absorbed or dissipated in offense and defense. This is a huge benefit and wealth for Jia Yan. But even so, he was not complacent. Instead, he was still taking defensive counterattacks and listening to what was going on around him. If that martial lord wants to take action, now is the best time. Although the 7 senior domain masters were already in a hurry and injured a few people, it was not a serious injury. If he took action, as long as the timing was right, Jia Yan would definitely have a huge flaw exposed even if he did not immediately fall into a panic crisis. Then under the siege of 8 senior domain masters, the possibility of him being in danger is also extremely high. But Wuzun did not take any action. This is a cunning old man. Jia Yan couldn't help but feel a little admiration for this shrinking turtle-like martial lord. The last time he fought against him, this guy was far from being a cunning person. It seemed like he was just role positioning and self-limiting skills. Now that he knew that Jia Yan was difficult to deal with, he adopted the safest approach. Maybe he is not taking action, but is continuing to wait. If Jia Yan later inflicts a devastating blow to the 7 senior domain lords, but also reveals some major flaws in himself, this martial lord will probably can't sit still. But Jia Yan didn't care whether Wuzun resorted to intrigues or not. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. He just sensed the direction where Wuzun might be hiding and immediately continued to scan around. That guy, it's almost time to take action. Otherwise, I would be too stupid to direct and act on my own. That's right, the 7 people present, in addition to creating opportunities for him to improve his strength after promotion, in Jia Yan's perception, his biggest opponent in this battle has never been the 7 senior domain masters who are fighting against him. It's not like he's a martial lord who makes a public appearance. It is another existence that has been following the 7 powerful men for a long time, and no one except Jia Yan has noticed it. Probably, this is the real reason why the 7 powerful men in front of them are so confident, right? Senior Territory Lord? No, probably above the Senior Territory Lord. Tisk tisk, how much does the Northern Territory value me? Before I showed the strength of the Senior Territory Lord, I had already prepared a Senior Territory Lord. Are the beings from above coming to surround me? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2970. Rebirth of the starry sky giant mosquito. The reason why Jia Yan has not shown crushing strength until now, nor has he defeated any senior domain lord with one blow, is actually because of this big fish who has never shown up. As long as he is ready to kill a certain senior domain lord, this hidden guy will definitely take action. Otherwise, he will lose his helper for no reason, and he must be unwilling to do so. So Jia Yan has been trying to make insinuations. That hidden power, perhaps because of his confidence in his own hiding ability, made him unaware that Jia Yan already knew where he was. Region Lord's lower level. And it has been a short time since he entered the Domain Lord's lower level. Jia Yan soon understood. After making the assessment, he did not show any fear. He had already prepared to face the super strong people here, otherwise why would he forcefully stay in Jianghu Star territory? This battle was not only to familiarize him with the strength of the lower level territory lords, but also to complete the battle in one battle and solve the biggest dangerous problem that had plagued the Orion arm for a long time. Puff, puff, ha ha ha, Edissa is going to open the palace. Suddenly, not far from the battlefield, the palace that had been avoiding the battle circle took action and gradually retreated towards the depths of the subspace. The palace has always been lingering between the subspace and the normal space. Because it is separated from the battlefield, the power that will completely loot the subspace has not affected this place. After Edisha took control of the palace, the strong men around her also felt the movement here. Some of them moved their expressions, but in the end they did not choose any measures. This palace is famous. Many powerful people are quite envious of the huge palace that is 10,000 kilometers away. After all, it not only represents the cards, but also represents the means to move quickly in the subspace. It is both beautiful and practical, so why not do it? But others really can't afford it. Even if they could, they wouldn't have the subspace technology. Therefore, it is true that they are jealous, so much so that when they fought just now, they deliberately did not affect the palace here. Even if they are now at a disadvantage, none of them will use the palace to vent their anger, because if they lose, they will have nothing, so venting to a mere palace will be of no use. Besides, Jia Yan will definitely stop them. Now he has the initiative in the fight. He ordered the palace to enter the subspace. Why? Are you planning to do something? No matter what you do, we won't allow it. Is it possible that he has really reached the point of exhaustion? For a moment, the 7 powerful men's minds were turbulent, and each had various thoughts. The roaring sound of the confrontation was louder than the previous wave, but it did not directly cause any injuries to anyone present. It wasn't until Jia Yanfu's eyes flashed with something brilliant, and he felt that he was almost ready, that he took aim at the metal exoskeleton-like creature and struck down. Speaking of which, Your exoskeleton method is somewhat similar to my original evolutionary skills. Haha, in that case, let's start with you first. Who made us predestined? Of course it's not fate. Jia Yan killed him with one blow, and the guy with the metal exoskeleton instantly felt that the stabbing of his foot was completely different from the previous feeling. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Stronger. His eyes were about to burst, and he immediately activated the metal exoskeleton on his body with all his strength, preparing to survive this attack. However, there was only a pop sound, and at the moment of the assassination, the azure blue color on Jia Yan's feet burst out with light, piercing through the metal exoskeleton armor with one blow, and then piercing into the opponent's body. You are really strong, but you are following my old path. This defense has to be the best from the inside out. Jia Yan said this call in this person's ear, and the sarcasm was quite obvious. Is it really because of fate that I chose this metal exoskeleton to operate first? Wrong, simply because he was the most troublesome. He had resisted several of Jia Yan's frontal killing moves. Well, the senior domain master, who was gifted with metal exoskeletons, felt like he was dying. He looked at his injuries and quickly pulled away Jia Yan's feet. He saw that the injuries were bleeding profusely, and he stumbled towards him in great discomfort. Then fly away. He is not dead yet. Senior domain lords are not so easy to kill. Jia Yan was also blocked by the strong men behind him. They knew very well the truth behind the death of lips and teeth. When Jia Yan killed the man with extremely strong defense, it was like losing a shield. Although this person is injured now, as long as he goes to the side and rests for a while, he should be able to regain some of his combat power. Everyone present was injured a little, it was just a matter of more or less. The sound of fighting and fighting echoed in the starry sky. This is not a created world, and sound cannot be transmitted in a vacuum. However, because the level of the confrontation is too high-end, the people present have triggered various unique innate powers, resulting in the collision of rare particles in the vacuum and causing violent noises. Jia Yan faced this group of guys who once again blocked him desperately, but did not choose to continue chasing him, because he knew that even if he caught up, he might not be able to kill the metal exoskeleton. His purpose from the beginning was to make him lose just fighting power. Without defense, how can you resist me? Jia Yan was enjoying the fight, and felt a joyful fighting sensation all over his muscles and bones. He carried forward the rhythm of making false claims in the east and attacking in the west. When? Dang dang! There are a total of 6 feet, each with its own attack ability, especially the 2 pairs of front feet, which are often swung out with azure blue and can easily break through the opponent's defense. If the senior domain master did not have his own life-saving skills, maybe there has been death. Puff. Seeing that another one was shot through the abdomen by Jia Yan, he quickly retreated from the battle circle with an ugly look on his face, but this time the people around him failed to catch him and could no longer protect him from staying away. Jia Yan's quick eyes and quick hands ejaculated from the back foot again. You know, Jia Yan rarely uses his hind feet, so people misunderstand that his hind feet have no combat effectiveness. In fact, it is correct to say this. Jia Yan has not specifically trained his hind feet, but this does not mean that he really cannot fight with his hind feet. At least the characteristic of the hind feet is that they are extremely long. Compared with the front feet and midfoot, the attack range is greatly increased. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. At this time, everyone present did not notice that the rear foot kicked out, and the length was much longer than Jia Yan's usual front and middle foot, so it had an unexpected effect in an instant. Pyridine. This foot cut the strong man's heart, causing a large rain of blood. The strong man's whole expression changed drastically, and then he continued to retreat quickly in the face of the dead soul. After all, he had suffered a real fatal injury now. If Jia Yan applied another blow, he would definitely die. Want to leave? Stay. Jia Yan did not choose to be merciful, but allowed his body to move forward despite the obstruction of the strong man, preparing to use his ultimate move to end this man's life. But just when he was about to start his killing move, his expression changed slightly. Are you here? Haha, I've been waiting for you for a long time. A silent attack, the subgravitational wave system surged out from within, like a tsunami, with each wave higher than the next. In an instant, the gravitational wave system was directly shot, and the attack came to the center of Jia Yan's forehead. Wow! Before the attack came, Jia Yan could already feel waves surging like ocean waves. It seems that this huge force cannot be stopped by human power. Jia Yan remained motionless as a mountain. Instead of avoiding the sharp edge, he stepped forward despite the difficulties. The positive and negative force that had been brewing for a long time exploded directly on the incoming wave-shaped attack. The sky and the earth turned pale for a moment, and then the space seemed to be broken, and a lot of ping-ping-pong-pong sounds could be heard. The senior domain lords who were attacking Jia Yan all around were affected. Many people were affected and they retreated violently. Although they were not hurt, everyone was in danger. Who else showed up? Judging from the strength of this attack, it seems quite tricky. However, among the group of besiegers, there was one person who looked directly ecstatic after feeling the power of that energy. Welcome to Senior Zuyu. The senior domain masters on one side heard the words and felt as if they were enlightened. They felt the warmth rising, and they saluted respectfully towards the direction where the wave attack was coming. Welcome to Senior Zuyu. Zuyu. Jia Yan was stunned for a moment, then laughed it off. He knows this name, or in other words, he has known it a long time ago. After all, this existence is a famous one. In the Northern Territory, it is a high-end flower and stands at the top of the entire Northern Territory. A master at the lower level of the Territory Lord. And he has the gravitational wave talent that makes people extremely headache. Although Jia Yan's face was expressionless, he was sighing a little in his heart. It's over, Barbie is Q. Those who came were from the gravitational wave system, and they were the late domain masters. It's okay to fight, but he doesn't think he will lose because his backhand hasn't been shown yet. But the problem is that Zuyu is rumored to be the only proud person in the entire Northern Territory. It's not that she is strong. Instead, she possesses the gravitational wave talent, which is a weird talent alongside the subspace talent and is recognized as difficult to kill. Jia Yan had escaped disaster in the gravitational wave system. He had a deeper understanding of the relationship between gravitational waves and subspace, so he knew that even if the opponent was not outstanding in hand-to-hand combat, as long as he entered the gravitational wave system, he would. Whether you want to kill someone with strength or hurt them, it's very difficult. But because of this difficulty, do you just give up? This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Impossible. The emotions have been brewing to this point, and even if he wants to leave, will Zuyu be willing? Thinking of this, Jia Yan straightened his expression and said calmly to where the tsunami-like attack was coming, Senior Zuyu, right? I've heard about his name for a long time, but I didn't expect to see his face today. A great master in the lower ranks of territory lords would be an incredible being no matter where he is. Jia Yan is right to be respectful. Even if life and death were to be decided immediately, Jia Yan would not be too rude. The strong men who have reached this stage only agree on this point. Because what you respect is not the other person, but the entire cultivation system. Respecting the system means respecting yourself. Of course everyone is different and there are exceptions. Jia Yan, After only a few decades of seclusion, there are children from the Northern Territory who have cultivated to such a level. I am really impressed. As he spoke, a white creature tore open a hole in the surging gravitational wave space behind it, and walked out gracefully and slowly. Her whole body is like white jade. Although she is not huge in size, she is still more than 10 kilometers in size. Although she is too small for a 50-kilometer-long monster like Jia Yan, it is not difficult to understand that the other party is a female creature. The most important thing for a strong person is energy fluctuations. As soon as she appears, the inside of her crystal-clear body has an aura that exceeds that of a senior domain lord. This alone will make people ignore her figure. Seniors are overly praised. I can't learn from the juniors. Compared with you, your senior, a great master who has enjoyed a long reputation, I am still inferior. How dare I be praised by my seniors? After Zhu Yu walked out, Jia Yan was a little surprised, feeling like he had an impression somewhere. She walked out of the gravitational wave system, looked at the senior domain lords retreating in the distance, then looked at the injuries of several of them, and sighed. If one person faces the cooperation of 7 senior domain lords at the same time, not only will he not be affected by those who are seriously injured and can injure them are not worthy of my praise, so there must not be many people in this galaxy who are worthy of my praise. Haha, it's just that these friends don't want to bully me, a new strong man. Zhu Yu looked at Jia Yan with bright eyes and said slowly, don't you want to bully them? I think you don't want to bully them. So far, you haven't used all your strength. Jia Yan was a little surprised when the truth was revealed, but he immediately became magnanimous. If he could discover a lower-level domain lord within the gravitational wave system, how could he not let the other party realize that he was not giving his all? If you can cultivate to this point, no one is a fool. The 7 senior domain masters at the rear all looked shocked, and then looked at Jia Yan in confusion, and soon became miserable. It turns out that Jia Yan fought with them for so long, or was it because he showed mercy? The embarrassed senior domain masters looked at each other, not wondering whether Senior Zhu Yu was wrong. Given that person's status, he would probably not talk nonsense. Well, Jia Yan, now that I have appeared, you must also understand that it is difficult to have any results in a confrontation with me. It's not that I look down on you, but I have the talent of subspace similar to yours. I have gravity. Bow talent, the 2 major talents, from ancient times to the present, are rarely heard of being able to decide the winner at the same level. Therefore, no matter how strong you are, you can't do anything to me. In the same way, I don't think I can do anything to you. Since so, why don't you and I shake hands and make peace? I will ask the juniors to apologize to you for besieging you. From now on, we will try our best to make convenient passages in the northern region for the Orion Arm incident. What do you think? This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Before the Zhu Yu expert could finish speaking, there was a senior domain master who had been severely injured on the other side. He said slightly unwillingly, Senior Zhu Yu, he has lost a lot of physical energy and has injuries on his body. Moreover, the subspace has been blocked by us in every possible way. This Jia Yan cannot enter again. Puff. Before he finished speaking, the opponent who was about to persuade the strong Zhu Yu to start a battle with Jia Yan was stunned. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2971. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Because he saw that Jia Yan's body seemed to be wrapped in some kind of material. The material was extremely twisted, and Jia Yan was so wrapped in the material that he easily stepped into the subspace below the third level that should have been destroyed by them, and wandered in the subspace. After half a minute, he reappeared on the same spot, looking at the senior domain master who was teasing Zuyu to fight with a half-smile. It would have been really difficult for Jia Yan to do this in the past. In the past, he was always destroyed by others in the subspace, or interfered with the subspace. Even if he could enter the subspace, he would be greatly affected, resulting in a loss of combat effectiveness. But that was before. The solution is available at White Dolphin. He can move silently in the subspace. Although his overall talent in the subspace is not as good as Jia Yan's, his unique movement method and the lightness of a dolphin entering the water cannot be compared to Jia Yan. After Jia Yan killed the White Dolphin, he learned a lot of subspace skills from his legacy, including the method of not being afraid of being disturbed by others in the subspace. Good means. Zuyu nodded in admiration, and looked at the strong man who made the suggestion without any trace, making the other person blush instantly and lose his face. Senior Zuyu, since this battle is not suitable to continue, then we will do as you say. I will send someone to discuss the specific details with you later. Wait a minute. Just when Jia Yan thought that this battle was not going to be easy, he saw the backstage leader of the territory, Lord Zuyu, who had been the leader of the peace, slowly shaking his head. It's impossible to separate life and death, and you and I can't do it, but some grievances require at least 10 moves from you and me to resolve them, otherwise not only you will be unwilling, but I will be unwilling as well. So, in order to give both sides an explanation, how about you and I try to determine the winner with a limit of 10 moves? Feud. Jia Yan was stunned again. I came to the Northern Territory just as a passerby, and I had a very strong purpose. The journey was very fast, not to mention that I didn't cause any trouble at all, but I didn't do anything extraneous. Why do you have a feud with Zuyu, one of the famous superpowers in the Northern Territory? Probably he saw the doubt in Jia Yan's eyes. Zuyu sighed softly and said calmly, Your Majesty Jia Yan, you forget things a lot. My junior was killed by you. I cannot ignore this matter. Younger generation. After saying this, Jia Yan finally remembered that Zuyu felt vaguely familiar when they first met. Now that he mentioned it, he became even more weird and took a closer look at Zuyu's appearance. The whole body is like jade, the body shape is smooth, but it has limbs. If it weren't for these limbs, it's definitely a large dolphin. Senior Zuyu, are you the elder of White Dolphin? Jia Yan was still a little surprised. White Dolphin is a force of the Bai family around the Northern Territory. If he has elders, they should be in the Bai family's territory. Why are they in the Northern Territory? But it's normal to think about it. The Northern Territory is a prosperous place. If there are really any top experts in the Bai family who stay in the Bai family, it would be better to take charge of the entire Northern Territory. This can explain the relationship between the Bai family and the Northern Territory. Although it borders the Northern Territory, it has not been swallowed up too much by the Northern Territory. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. It turned out to be the elder of the White Dolphin. But in this case, Jia Yan believes that the other party will not have any thoughts of fighting with him to death. Regardless of the tone of voice, White Dolphin should not be his direct descendant. Even if the two sides decided the winner in a fair bet, then Zuyu still wanted to get revenge, and Jia Yan completely broke up with her. And of course, it may also be approved by other strong people. Of course, everything must be carried out with the help of strength. If Jia Yan was not strong enough, Zuyu would kill him the moment he appeared, and there would be no subsequent discussion. Yes, White Dolphin is the descendant of Lao Yi 10 generations later, but he is the most talented among his descendants. You killed him, but it left Lao Yi seriously injured for a long time. Jia Yan nodded and understood. It seems that we can't make a 10-move agreement with our seniors. So let's draw up a charter first. Are these 10 moves divided into life and death, or are they all there? So far, it's still the same sentence. I'm afraid we can't tell the difference between life and death. Okay, let's get started. Jia Yan was very straightforward. With a buzzing sound, the whole person entered the subspace, and his body became blurred. It seems that he has accepted the other party's concept that the two sides cannot tell the difference between life and death. But in fact, Jia Yan was not so careless. Being careless and losing Jingzhou is a big taboo for the strong. I don't know how many strong people have killed themselves just because of a moment of negligence. He is quite a cautious boy. For Zuyu, knowing that Jia Yan is a young man in his early 100s is enough for her to call Jia Yan a boy. After all, as a junior territory lord, I have been in control of the northern territory for who knows how long. It is impossible to call a 100-year-old junior without a boy. Even if they are of the same rank and there is too much difference in generation, it is absolutely impossible to talk about friendship as equals. Unless something happens, that is, Jia Yan shows that he is stronger than this one. Of course, this is a bit difficult. I have defeated many enemies in my life, but I have fought many battles with subspace beings of the same level, and there is no winner. But this does not mean that I have never studied ways to deal with subspace beings. There was only an agreement of 10 moves, so Zuyu was prepared to use certain techniques from the beginning. Jia Yan was inside the subspace, looking solemnly at the gravitational wave system expert outside. He didn't know what kind of methods this lower-ranking territory lord who was the king and hegemon in the northern territory would have. But this guy is absolutely terrifying. Boom. When Jia Yan was thinking about how the other party would attack, he felt that the whole subspace was turned upside down. What? Even Jia Yan was shocked. You must know that the subspace system is an entire system that runs through the universe. In terms of mystery, it may be higher than the gravitational wave system. After all, the subspace system can extend to the depths, while the gravitational wave system may not even be able to covering the entire universe. After all, gravity requires the existence of gravitational waves. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Just now, when the 7 senior domain masters wanted to control Jia Yan, they only used some method to clean up the first 3 levels of subspace. That only calmed the distortion of the subspace, rather than causing it. The collapse of the space system. But now, at least the subspace system within this area has completely collapsed. Not the ordinary kind of shattering, but real collapse. The permanent kind. Buzz. That kind of collapse quickly approached the area where Jia Yan was located, like a spreading virus, which was daunting. Jia Yan retreated continuously. He didn't believe that this kind of collapse could penetrate deep into the subspace. The speed of collapse was so fast that even Jia Yan's retreat in subspace could hardly keep up with the speed of collapse. His expression suddenly became extremely cold. Where to escape? Zuyu's figure, at some point, unexpectedly advanced into the subspace. Oh no, or should I say, this is no longer the subspace. Her whole body was covered with some kind of surging energy, like a tide, rising one after another, rushing directly into the original area of the broken subspace, following her like a shadow, pushed by the power of the tide, and entered area of fighting. Jia Yan stretched out his foot and collided with the opponent's outstretched forelimb. He felt that the wave of energy directly invaded his foot. He could not resist it at all. His foot made an overwhelming sound of breaking. Fortunately, he had the help of Azure Defense, otherwise his foot would have been broken in just one move. Too strong. The fierce flames in Jia Yan's eyes also flickered. This is the first time in a long time that he has encountered an opponent who looks like this. Of course this is too normal. At best, he has just stepped into the lower level of territory lord, while the opponent is a super strong man who has been immersed in this way for a long time. With good talent, more experience, and definitely a deeper level of cultivation than Jia Yan, if Jia Yan just thinks that he is an evolved beast and can suppress the opponent, that would be too naive. To be honest, the so-called unique talents of evolved beasts, not to mention the lower-level domain lords, even if they are thrown at the senior domain lord level, they are not extremely outstanding. Everyone has their own unique talents, and there is no distinction between them. He just uses them. The talent level and compatibility ability are just outstanding. For those talents such as metal exoskeleton talent, mental power talent, expansion talent, etc., people of this generation may not be able to compete with Jia Yan, but they do not represent the members of their clan. There is no way to produce a top genius, suppressing the powerful evolved beast talents after Jia Yan. In other words, Jia Yan was suppressed by the lower level of Zuyu territory lord, which was something he had judged from the beginning. I just didn't expect that the other party could follow up to the subspace and cause such a big noise. It's almost impossible to tell whose home court it is. Click. Jia Yan's broken front foot collided with the other foot. Suddenly, an extremely strong light burst out between the 2 feet. Onmyedo. Good. Jia Yan's yin-yang dao power had been brewing in his body for a long time. As soon as his feet crossed, 1 foot suddenly received a huge repulsion. He burst out at a speed far exceeding the previous speed and started a head-on confrontation with Zuyu. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. As for Zuyu, although she tested Jia Yan's depth with 1 blow, it didn't mean that she could rest easy. She has judged that Jia Yan's spiritual power has indeed reached the lower level of territory lord. As for the physical body, although it is a bit reluctant, it is almost at the level of the lower level of the domain lord. Since both parties are at the same level, she will not have the slightest contempt. Especially after Jia Yan's feet intersected, she felt the powerful young man suddenly burst out with extremely terrifying attack power. None of her limbs were willing to give in. Sure enough, there is no weak person who can reach this level. Even a newcomer has such strength. Zuyu originally thought that if there was a chance within 10 moves, he would directly kill this enemy, so as to avoid extremely powerful harm to the future Northern Territory. It's a pity that after these 2 moves, she already knew that it was very difficult to do this. Ping. The feet collided hundreds of times, but less than 2 or 3 seconds passed before the 2 sides separated again. Jia Yan looked at his 2 feet. Although the blue defense would repair the cracks in the feet the moment they were cracked, they were still full of cracks. If it continued for more than 10 minutes, his front feet might be damaged. Cut off abruptly here. Really scary. Are there parallel imports at the domain lord level? Yes, there are many more, at least that's what Jia Yan thinks. Does the senior domain owner have parallel imports? It's not much, but it's definitely there. But, are there parallel imports at the lower levels of the territory lord? Jia Yan dared to conclude that there was absolutely no such thing as any lower level domain lord could not be underestimated. It is extremely difficult to defeat or kill any of them under the same level conditions. What's more, his overall strength, regardless of all aspects, is crushed by the opponent. If it weren't for Azure Defense and Yin Yang Dao, with this second move, he would have lost his armor and either escaped or been injured. That was the second move just now, because it was a set of attacks, and the next one is the third move. Jia Yan looked behind Zuyu and suddenly understood. I know what the other party directly crushed the subspace thing. It turns out to be a gravitational wave system. Zuyu is a person who has studied the gravitational wave system to an extremely profound level. Therefore, when dealing with subspace, the best solution is to use the gravitational wave system to drive away wolves and tigers. Gravitational waves have an equal relationship with the previous space. If there is another strong person who can operate properly and guide them, and use the unique surging effect of gravitational waves in the attack, then there will be the effect of instantly swallowing up a large area of the subspace system. Jia Yan couldn't learn this kind of thing, and he had no need to learn it. Groan. Suddenly, Jia Yan retreated to the 5th level of subspace, with Zuyu in front of her chasing after her, but around her, a large number of distortions became intense. The 5th-dimensional space distortion is not something that is so easy to break through. In other words, being able to allow someone with the gravitational wave system to carry gravitational waves to the 5th dimension, this senior Zuyu, is already astonishing. But here, the subspace operated by Jia Yan is more powerful, but it is not as easy to handle as before. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Little tricks. Several space distortions turned into tornadoes, roaring towards Zuyu. The other party snorted coldly, and saw that she wrapped herself with the tide of the gravitational wave. She herself was like a dolphin swimming in the tide, and continued to swim at the front of the subspace quickly. In front of her, it was Jia Yan who was retreating quickly. Just like that, she could still cling to Jia Yan. Boom 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 boom. A large number of explosions sounded, and the subspace swept by Jia Yan collided with several major tides of gravitational waves, causing the system to be torn apart. There was a sound like the earth was shattering, causing the entire starry sky Indino to shake. As for the senior domain masters in the outside world, they didn't have much influence, they were just horrified. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2972. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. But having just entered the deep level of the subspace, the palace waiting for Jia Yan's Aditha to operate in the area around the 9th floor was swaying like a boat in the stormy sea. The huge palace body, which is tens of thousands of kilometers long, actually there was a huge shaking, causing all the people who created the world, including Jiolin, to feel pale and extremely panicked. Don't worry, this is Master fighting a strong man, we will be fine. Adisha tried to comfort her, but she didn't expect it to have the opposite effect. Is this the fluctuation caused by the battle between strong men? How is it possible? How strong must it be to cause such fluctuations? It can even shake a palace tens of thousands of kilometers away. I'm afraid it's still far away. If it's close, we might have been affected. Everyone looked at each other in shock, feeling that they had really come to a world of monsters. The monsters here are all incredibly powerful. Of course, they don't know that even in the outside galaxy, there are not many existences as powerful as these two fighting outside. Edisha also knew that these guys who came out of the creation world had an instinctive fear of the outside world. Even this kind of instinctive fear is not just the worship and fear of the powerful. It is caused by defects within the biological genes, because after all, they are just beings from the creation of the world. They were originally made of computers that consumed a lot of energy. Designed by large computing power, they are finally created out of nothing. Their genetic simplicity makes them imperfect most of the time. This also leads to their instinctive panic after seeing the reality outside. It is impossible to solve this problem by just relying on words to comfort them. Unless their strength is further improved, or after dozens or hundreds of generations of reproduction, they are getting closer and closer to real life forms. The fifth move. On the other side, subspace has been turned into a mess by the war. Not to mention the shallow 3rd and 4th floors, even the 5th and 6th floors are already in a mess. The twisted subspace and the surging gravitational waves have both been wiped out. The area left behind is no longer what it is, probably. It was the remnants of the collision and explosion between the two sides. It would be fatal if touched. Even Jia Yan and Zhu Yu tried their best not to touch that chaotic area. The two sides fought fiercely, but overall, Jia Yan was still at a disadvantage. He didn't expect that the other party could break into the subspace. Before 10 moves, injure him, whether it is a deterrent or revenge. In short, the name of the Northern Territory must be engraved deep in this boy's heart. There was a kind of calmness in Zhu Yu's expression. She said she wanted to avenge her heirs, but Zhu Yu had so many heirs in her life. The Bai family was just the heirs of his heirs, and it was just a branch. Although there were no other senior domain lord descendants in her name, there were enough domain lord level ones. There are more than a dozen of them, and some of them have developed to various regions of the galaxy, so how can they have such deep feelings for the descendants of such a place? What she was thinking in her heart was to teach Jia Yan a lesson. It sounds childish, but this is actually just a popular saying. Among the powerful people in the universe, there are many people who act like this. Even all life planets and forces actually treat their enemies in this way. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading /U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. For example, the former superpowers of the Earth always drove warships to the gates of certain countries to demonstrate because they could not win on certain political or economic issues. This was also a kind of lesson, and the purpose was to exchange for victory on other levels. Within 10 moves, she wanted to let Jia Yan experience the power she had as much as possible. As long as Jia Yan eats badly, he will have awe of the Northern Territory when he looks back, and will not take an aggressive stance. The Northern Territory will naturally remain safe and sound for a long time. But if Jia Yan didn't suffer any losses, it would be hard to say. When Jia Yan could not be killed, Zhu Yu acted like this, which can be said to be the most appropriate way. But could Jia Yan not understand her thoughts? Revenge or something, Geixin? Do you want to suppress me with 10 moves and make me retreat? Jia Yan was actually very annoyed and wanted to say, I never thought about swallowing up your Northern Territory. Can you stop so much drama? But even if he said it, others would definitely not believe it. The descendant of evolution beast, not to mention Jia Yan's own strength, has reached this point. The competitive relationship between the two parties is irreconcilable. Just talk about the historical grudges in the past, and it is impossible not to make people doubt his motives. In other words, these 10 moves are the 10 moves that set the tone for the future. The 9th move. Puff. Jia Yan was still retreating violently, but the giant mosquito's countless compound eyes were already a little brighter. Zhu Yu, who was chasing after her, didn't care so much. With her last move, she would let Jia Yan take a good look at how big the gap was between him and the lower level of the territory lord who had been immersed in him for a long time. Their eyes intertwined and they all took action. But the power that flashed after Jia Yan's foot collided was unprecedented. And not only that, somewhere in the subspace, a blue spherical object also lit up. Positive and negative explosives. Yes, after talking about 10 moves, you can be at a disadvantage in the first 9 moves, but on the 10th move, Jia Yan is not prepared to hold back. Zhu Yu, whose whole body was wrapped by the gravitational wave system, felt a crisis approaching, and his expression was slightly solemn. Of course she knew Jia Yan would have backup plans. The battle for the lower level of the territory lord is fought back and forth. Those who seem weak may not be really weak, and those who seem strong may not necessarily win. This is also the reason why after she judged that Jia Yan had reached the lower level of the territory lord, she did not want to kill him directly, but taught Jia Yan a lesson with 10 moves. In this way, neither side will use their trump card. But Jia Yan still used a certain killer weapon. Can't you calm down? Then let me show you your true strength. She also has information about positive and negative explosives. As Jia Yan's traditional trump card, it is also a unique skill that many people in the Orion arm have mastered recently. She has already become famous. Even many powerful people in the Northern Territory have obtained detailed information. This positive and negative explosive can be said to be Jia Yan's absolute weapon against many enemies of the same level, or even those who have crossed levels. Zhu Yu, who is the enemy this time, does not know him. Are you coming? Various thoughts were surging in her eyes, and then the gravitational waves on her body suddenly became several times stronger. The expanding gravitational wave almost spread to Jia Yan. Fortunately, Jia Yan had quick eyes and quick hands. He stepped on the ripples of subspace and retreated to the 7th layer of subspace. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading --U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. When reaching the depth of the 7th layer, in fact, no matter how terrifying the gravitational wave tide is, it is impossible to reach it. Jia Yan had already noticed this just now, but he has been unwilling to hide above the 7th layer, because this is a complete admission that he is inferior to his opponent. The whooshing sound was extremely violent, and a spherical object, carrying fierce flames that broke through bamboos, rushed straight towards this area, but was severely blocked due to the condensed gravitational wave system. As expected, he is an existence who has been in the lower level of Domain Lord for who knows how long. His sensitivity in combat and his grasp of the timing of combat are far beyond mine. Jia Yan looked at the opponent's gesture of blocking his attack for a moment, and sighed in his heart. After reaching this stage, the enemies he faced were no longer ordinary characters. He couldn't fight them with the thought that he could kill enemies beyond the level. It's not bad that you are a late-level territory lord, and it's not bad that you are a person with strong subspace talents, but which of the other late-level territory lords is not extremely talented? In the past, the idea of I am an evolved beast, I am a subspace genius, so I can kill enemies across levels may not be applicable to the Domain Lord level, let alone the later Domain Lord level. Bear. The giant positive and negative explosive meteorite about 5 kilometers that broke through the subspace came to a halt before being enveloped by the gravitational wave system. Jia Yan's eyes were intense and bright. Burst. Zhu Yu on the opposite side was told that this was Jia Yan's ultimate trick. Even the gravitational waves she brought into the subspace could not be destroyed. Unexpectedly, her heart twitched violently, and she felt an extremely strong sense of crisis in front of her. Boom! The spherical blue object exploded. Why did it explode so far away? According to his intelligence, no matter how much he calculated, it was impossible to have such an explosive. Zhu Yu's expression was a little grim, but at this moment, there was no other way except to pile up his gravitational wave defense to the thickest level. I saw a huge amount of gravitational waves introduced into the subspace by Zhu Yu. Many of them flew in front of her in an instant and lingered around him, becoming the most solid defense system. The exploding ball fragments shot directly in front of her at the speed of lightning and flint, breaking through a large amount of gravitational wave tidal power. Most of the fragments had already melted during the breakdown process. For the particles that collided, some of them actually passed through the defense system and shot into the body of the lower-level Domain Lord. Puff puff. Intense pain spread along the nerve endings to the brain. Zhu Yu felt cold all over his body, and then his eyes sharpened and he made an unprecedented defensive posture. She admitted that she had underestimated the newcomer in front of her. If the opponent is a good fighter, he will seize this opportunity and rush in directly in front of her while she is slightly injured to start chasing her, which may cause serious injuries or even threaten her life. But of course she wouldn't be so careless. But after Zhu Yu got ready with a solemn expression, his expression suddenly froze. I saw that Jia Yan was still where he was. He had controlled the main direction of the explosion, so it did not cause any harm to him. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. Huh, Zuyu paused, as if he couldn't understand. However, after Jia Yan saw Zuyu looking at him, he said calmly, "Senior Zuyu is really good at it. I have prepared 10 killing moves but I can't do anything to him. The 10 moves are over, so what if it's a draw?" For an instant, Territory Lord Zuyu's backsteps felt all sorts of mixed thoughts, and some even wanted to rush over and continue the fierce battle, but that would be a real declaration of war. Of the 10 moves just now, it was only because of her carelessness in the last move that Jia Yan confidently shouted the word draw. Otherwise, based on the quality of the first 9 moves, she, Zuyu, would have an absolute lead. But the problem is that Zuyu not only failed to resist this last move, but was also injured. Therefore, it was natural for Jia Yan to say that they were evenly matched. "Okay, let's count the two of us as a draw in this competition." Zuyu calmed down for a long time, but he couldn't resist the idea of continuing the duel. But she knew that Jia Yan had such a killer skill, and he might be able to unleash it again. She was really a bit defensive. If she was struck by the explosive power just now, she would be seriously injured. "So we have to follow Jia Yan's wishes and let's draw." I just didn't expect that her initial intention to take action was to intimidate Jia Yan, but in the end she shot herself in the foot and became extremely fearful of Jia Yan's current strength. Haha, then I have to thank Senior for being merciful. By the way, now that the misunderstanding between us has been resolved, can Senior prove that I have no ambitions for the Northern Territory? Why don't Senior help me to come forward and tell those 2 people for me? My friends, please ask me to give them back my things. Otherwise, if they take my things, I can't just go back to the Orion Arm, and the people will scold me for being incompetent." Jia Yan spoke eloquently, seemingly as a request, but both inside and outside the words were threatening. Zuyu was silent for a while. After a while, she sighed quietly. How could she not know that Jia Yan had obtained the other 2 parts of the white dolphin's body, will become stronger than ever before? I'm afraid that even if she uses all her cards, she may not be able to force him back. But now that it was over, what else could she say? "I promise you, but, Jia Yan, you have to know that I am not the only one in the Northern Territory. There is an old friend here who has been in charge all year round, and an old friend who often returns from the outside world. If you really are still if you want to cause trouble, the Northern Territory, are destined to be able to control you." Jia Yan nodded. "Of course I have no intention of going against Bu, but since Senior is so worried about me, let's sign a formal treaty between us." "How to write this treaty?" Jia Yan, will never set foot in the Northern Territory for 100, no, 300 years, unless the Northern Territory deceives the person in my Orion Arm. And you, the Northern Territory, must also guarantee that within 300 years, unless how about I, the Orion Arm, take the initiative to invade your Northern Territory, otherwise I will never attempt to invade the Orion Arm." Jia Yan's request was very simple and fair. But this only seems fair. The strength gap between the Orion Arm and the Northern Territory is like cloud mud. It is a treaty between the Northern Territory and the Orion Arm, rather than a treaty between the Northern Territory as a whole and Jia Yan alone. This chapter is not finished. Click next page to continue reading U003E/U003E. Rebirth of the Starry Sky Giant Mosquito. But Zuyu only thought about it briefly and nodded in agreement. "I can promise you, I think the people in the Northern Territory don't think much of your Orion Arm either." Jia Yan wanted to retaliate and said, "Who do you look down on?" but thinking about the gap between the Northern Territory and the Orion Arm, he still endured it.